we always stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, so if everybody wants to stand up. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight we have a public hearing that was scheduled, I guess, for the 11th in September. And this is on proposed revisions to the town code. We have George McGregor, the Planning and Community Director here. We have Marjorie Winter here, who is the Chair of the Conservation Commission. And basically they're asking for a change. Oops. Get serenaded here. Asking for a change to the code around what they can do and when they can call something a large and complex project. So I'd like to see who's here, if we want to say anything before the public hearing, or do we want to just allow people to speak on the public hearing?
I'd be happy to describe it in a little more detail if you'd like.
Is anyone here to speak for the public hearing tonight? Oh, okay, good. Okay, do you want to hear from George? Okay, George, why don't you
I'll just
give a little.
I'll just frame it very briefly. I did put some thoughts together, but so the Inland Wetlands Agency and Conservation Commission is requesting a change to the town code, specifically section 85.6.1 of the town code. And that section addresses what town calls complex projects. These are land use projects. So the town code allows our land use commission, so Inland Wetlands, Zoning Board, Planning Commission, it allows them to secure outside technical assistance, with the costs being borne by the applicant as part of the application process. Essentially to hire subject matter experts, traffic engineers, soil scientists, those kinds of folks, where that commission is deemed it's beyond staff's technical ability or staff's time capacity to provide adequate review of a complex project. These are big projects we're talking about. And so the issue tonight is the town code defines complex projects specifically, has to meet a certain threshold. It either has to have 100,000 square feet of development, could be commercial or residential, or 200 parking spaces. Doesn't appear that in recent memory the land use boards have taken that as an opportunity, but nonetheless the conservation is asking to remove that threshold for their projects, specifically inland wetland projects. I don't want to steal Marjorie's thunder, but in the letter sent to you specifically, the justification was an application before the Conservation Commission might raise complex technical issues with potential impacts on wetlands without involving significantly large buildings or projects in the threshold. So staff has provided a strike-through version of that code. It essentially just would remove the threshold for the Inland Wetlands Commission and Conservation Commission. It would not remove them for the Zoning Commission or the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Happy to answer your questions or hear from the chairwoman.
Just a quick question, was this a result kind of the vessel property because it was no? Okay, because it was complex, but it maybe didn't fit the feet. Just curious.
I would certainly rather the chairwoman respond to that. I think it was a collective consensus of the commission that, hey, there's oftentimes, we're never gonna have projects that are that big to ever meet the threshold, but there's still gonna be projects well below that could have those impacts.
Okay.
And therefore, we need technical expertise. Staff is very smart, does a great job. We don't have a soil scientist on staff, for instance, so that would be.
George, why isn't that same methodology being applied across the other boards and commissions?
So we took we took the request, one of as part of the letter, the Conservation Commission asked, take it to the other boards and commissions. Took it to the Zoning Commission and the Planning Commission, and they thought that those thresholds were appropriate.
Okay, Marjorie?
That's questionable.
Yeah,
Marjorie, you wanna, public hearing.
alright, so George just said everything I was going to say, but with the, there have been applications before us recently, on application, that we thought it would have been nice to have had more expert witnesses to bolster our decision. The way the law is written, we have to take the expert witness of the applicant. And I think it'd be reassuring to the public to know that there was another expert witness testimony also before us. We did write, it wasn't just because of this particular application that came before us this year, but it was also, I think we had submitted a letter a couple of years ago to the board asking for this.
Okay.
Because we do recognize that there are going to be projects next to a wetland that may be complex for us, not necessarily complex in the definition, it meets the definition. So just to have that on hand would be good. Also, this is something that the Board of Selectmen would have final approval over. So it wouldn't be for every application. Most applications do not need this, it's only for the rare exception.
Thank you. We have, do we have someone else to speak? Susan?
Susan Messino, 41 Madison Lane. So thank you for explaining the square footage issue. And I didn't know if that 100,000 square feet included parking lot and building. I guess just one comment, if we never get projects that apply, then I would think that zoning and planning should also have the ability to ask for some expertise for complex projects. I also know that one of the claims being made by developers is that their project is so climate friendly and sustainable, and I'm not sure that we really have the expertise to evaluate those claims. And I don't know how that could happen in our current kind of structure, because perhaps this is devoted just to regulatory issues with inland wetlands, or could it be interpreted as kind of environmental in general? So I guess that's my comment. I mean, it maybe would be up to you to make it broadly applicable to all of the boards if we think that's important for complex projects. And how could sustainability claims be similarly quantified by experts? So that's my comments.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else here for this public hearing? If not, I'm gonna ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Move that.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed and it's on the agenda for later this evening. The next part of our meeting is public audience. We do have a request from Mark Ornstein, who is the TV guy, who wanted to go first. I just wanna make a reminder that everyone has 5 minutes. We will tell you to stop. And just because I know we have a lot of people here from the same group, if you can not repeat what the person said before you, but at least say you agree with them and then add whatever comments you'd like to make, it would just help us keep things moving, so that everybody has a chance to speak. Mark, your timer starts now.
Mark Ornstein, 82 Old Middle Plain Road, and I'm representing Simsbury Community Media tonight. So where are the microphones?
Oh.
If you take a look, there's a tile with a green light on it. It contains 8 microphones. It's called a beam-forming microphone array. And it's supposed to be able to cover a 30 by 30 foot room with good audio. It's been in operation since September 27th. The mics that were on here were just a fake out for backup. So the way we got this mic was through a PIDIA grant from last year. Part of our funding request was to get this mic installed. And it looks so far to be pretty good. I think we have to do a little bit of tuning with it. But if it looks this good, we'll probably end up applying again for a grant for the Board of Ed Office for next year. So
Thank you.
just wanted to mention it.
Thank you.
And thanks to the state for the PIDIA stuff.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for all of
Yeah.
that SCM does for us. And I didn't realize those were props last time.
They were there for backup.
Okay.
If we needed.
Okay, Joan, I was gonna defer to the group that's here because there's a lot of people here waiting to speak tonight, and then have you guys, our regulars, kind of go later. So I wanna see a raise of hands as to who's here for public audience and wants to speak tonight. Okay, I know we have people here from Cambridge Crossing, and I'd like to give you guys a chance to go first, since you've come as a group. So whoever would like to step up first, please do.
Good job.
Start my timer as well. So.
Okay, thanks.
So good evening, Selectmen and fellow citizens of the town. My name is John Alexopoulos. My family resides at 40 Cambridge Court. We've been living there since 2000. We are here today because we have a situation with our developer who has essentially been absent from responding to us, has been an absentee contractor. And the last time there was a hearing in front of the Selectmen, we were dealing with different issues. From that point to this day, we've had a lot of other issues that have popped up in social media that are basically public notice, that is public information. And this has been a somewhat of a unprecedented situation that we are dealing with, and I think that the town is dealing with, and a lot of other contractors are dealing with as well. If our children in the community had it their way, they would love to have nothing more than snow upon more snow. The issue that we're here today for, specifically myself, is to deal with the upcoming winter season, where we have no guaranteed services to our community. We don't know who's gonna be doing the plowing for our town. We are at a situation where it is, in my opinion, a public safety concern, because we don't know when we're gonna get plowed out, we don't know if we're gonna have any services, and we have to function as citizens of the town, we have to provide for our families as well. Get our children to school, allow our children to have safe access to the public school bus system, and allow people that drive their kids to school to be able to come and go, as well as people to continue with their daily activities and to be able to go to where they have to go. We have now started to contract with Payne's rubbish and trash removal, because we have been told that as of the end of this month, we are no longer gonna be receiving any type of services from them. When we came into town, when we bought properties, we were told that we'd be paying a monthly fee, and that there would be things that would be associated with that monthly fee, which we haven't really been receiving for quite some time. So a lot of people have contracted with Payne's, and we are taking that upon ourselves. We also, over the past several months from spring, we've been cutting our own lawn, maintaining our properties, but we're dealing with a situation now where we can't essentially plow our own roads. The town of Simsbury has, town maintenance is responsible for 162.09 miles. The miles that we have in our neighborhood total less than a mile. So we're asking for the town to offer assistance in providing regular snowplow removal and services for a short-term period. I would think that from November, unless we get an early storm, hopefully not, from November up until March, to provide us with one additional mile of town plowing services for this year, so that we can get over this hurdle, essentially. We don't know what we're gonna be facing in the coming months, but we do know that we don't hear from our contractor, we don't hear from anybody to just tell us when we're gonna be receiving services, what type of service we're gonna be receiving, and we are essentially out there floating in the abyss. We all came to this development with the perception of a contractor who had a reputable reputation, and I think that what's been happening in the news with all the different cases, both in criminal and in civil court, whatever is out there is public information, and it is not painting a good picture for everybody involved. So we would ask for the town, because we don't feel, and I personally don't feel, that we are able to contract a third party to provide services, because the neighborhood essentially still does not belong to us. We don't control the HOA. The property is still owned by a certain contractor that contracted with the town to build at Cambridge Crossing. So we understand that the town doesn't want to set a precedent. However, we also feel that if anybody or any public officials or town can get involved, I personally feel that it would be the town to be able to assist us more than anybody else, because I don't think we have standing to contract with somebody to provide plowing services when the property is owned by somebody else. I feel that if the town, and I've heard that the town may offer us plowing services for emergency situations, however, that's very diminished because we need regular plowing services. To have an emergency situation we have to call to provide services, I think is putting us at a disadvantage. We'd appreciate the town's consideration for approving us for one more mile of plowing this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Hi, I'm Robert Barcelo of 106 Cambridge Court. Would also like to discuss the neighborhood Cambridge Crossing, specifically 3 issues. I'll get into the snow in a bit, but first I just want to say thanks to the offers of help from a lot of the town personnel and the Board of Selectmen. But tonight, I feel like we need to ask for something more than just offers and promises. We need some actual help at this point. The first issue I wanted to talk about was neighborhood infrastructure or lack thereof. The town's called Sunlight's bond and line of credit over the summer at a special meeting in August. They've reviewed with the engineering plans for the neighborhood. They've met with an independent engineer, but they still haven't really produced anything tangible for the 33 families that live in the neighborhood. And since it was last brought up, problems have continued to get worse as we've gotten more rain. We had a rainy October. One family's basement flooded, so they spent several $1,000s of their own money to re-landscape the backyard. Other folks in similar situations have done the same, but that's just putting a Band-Aid and creating a temporary fix for those families. It doesn't address the underlying issue of the storm runoff every time it rains or when we get snow melt. So we need a drainage solution implemented as soon as possible. So I'm asking, does the town have that plan, and if they could communicate that with the residents so that we understand a timeline for a potential fix. Next, as winter is coming, snow removal from our neighborhood will be an issue. As residents of a private common interest community, we understood buying into that neighborhood that it was private and that we would be responsible for our own roads. We also were under the assumption that this homeowners association would be functioning. And I moved into my home in December 2021, and for those almost 2 years, I would argue the HOA is not functioning at all. We've had haphazard and really not really scheduled on a consistent basis services that stopped being provided for at all this past winter. So we've tried to touch base with Sunlight Construction and they just do not respond to us, and several 27 I think of the 33 families have banded together. We've taken the issue in front of the courts, but courts don't move very quickly. So we've also tried to push forward and sign as just residents snow removal contract, and we've learned, having called around, that Sunlight Construction is saying that they and they alone have the authority to sign a contract for snow removal for our neighborhood. So we're left in a gray area. What do we do for the snow removal for our neighborhood? We've got folks that are doctors, teachers, educators. Myself, I'm a National Guardsman. When we get a call, we need to be able to leave the neighborhood safely. And lastly, the issue of foreclosure of the property. I know there's another special session for that. It's not a quick process, we understand that, but if there's anything that could be done to expedite the process, to get another developer to come in, the other 2 issues would take care of themselves, so. And then the families that did buy into this community that was supposed to be low maintenance lifestyle, they would get what they were promised and what they had paid for moving in here, but we can't solve any of those problems ourselves. We do need the town's help for this, so thank you for your time.
Thanks, thank you. Do I have anyone else here to speak? I would like to just quickly thank you guys for coming from Cambridge Crossing before we go on to our next public audience. And what I would suggest, if there's no objection from the board, is if we ask to have, and Lee, I'll defer to you, if we ask to have council and Public Works and you to kind of sit down and see what our options are legally and what we can do as the town. Our Public Works Director is that his father passed away, so he's not here tonight. I'd like to have that just kind of discuss. The other thing is there are legal things going on that we may or may not know about, so we don't wanna step into anything in that respect, and that's why I would like to kind of defer it to that process and potentially come back maybe by our December meeting, or if not sooner, to see what we could find out. If that makes sense to you. Okay, did you wanna weigh in?
My hope is that we'd be able to have a discussion about this at our next meeting on November 13th, just to be able to give the community some guidance on what they would need to do in next steps if we're not able to help.
Okay, well, we'll see, I'll talk to Lee and we'll see
Okay.
where Bob can come into, and see what's going on that is out there going on that we may not be privy to, and we'll consider that.
Yeah, I'd just echo that, I'd prefer to do this while I'm still sitting on the board, as far as ask as many questions as I can to help next board be prepared for whatever decisions they may be faced with, because if we don't start asking questions now of what we can and can't do or getting more detail, then it's December and it's snowing.
Right.
So as much as we can help these people and help the next board committee having to make further decisions, let's equip all of us with as much information as we can. So I appreciate you.
Thank you for your feedback. Thank you. Okay. So now we have other people here for public audience.
So what I'm asking for is
Yeah.
that by the next Board of Selectmen meeting, if we can have another public, we can be prepared to ask questions of either subject matter experts within the town or council to start responding to some of these requests that we've been shared with us.
And it may or may not depend on other legal activities that are being.
Which is exactly what I'm talking about, is like what we can or can't ask.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm sorry, can I?
you'd have to come to public audience and state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
I'm Katie Barcelow, I'm from 106 Cambridge Court. Just before we leave this topic, I wanna be clear that we are concerned about the snow removal, you've already heard that, and I think that's true for every resident of our community. And I appreciate the feedback that we would like to hear something before December, before there's snow on the ground, right? We do understand the town is limited in its role, but I think part of the frustration you're hearing from us is that we don't know what the limitations are, because we have been mentioning these issues for months and months and months, and we don't actually have feedback. We have a lot of promises, we have a lot of people who have invested time coming out to the community, meeting with us, hearing our concerns, and we greatly appreciate that. But I still have no idea what the plan is, and we don't even have an outline of what the plan is. Like, we don't know what is even being considered, we just know that there's been work done with nothing to show for it. So any transparency we could get would be great. We've been getting nothing from our developers, so you're dealing with 33 families who are used to having no transparency, no honesty, no communication, and what we want is to have a positive relationship with the town and actually have some transparency and to keep that communication open. And I would like to know that there is some kind of continuity plan in place as the board changes out, because while you all have heard us talk for many months, I wanna make sure that doesn't get lost in the shuffle next year. Because otherwise, we're gonna spend the same amount of time doing this next year.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
We'll entrust Lee to make sure that we keep that moving forward. Okay, Joan?
Joan Cove, 26 Whitcomb Drive. On September 19, 2023, interim town manager Lee Erdman gave a presentation to the Board of Finance encompassing issues surrounding budgeting and the ambulance services in town. It appears the Simsbury Volunteer Ambulance Association is asking the town for financial assistance that led to remarks made by Lee Erdman. According to the Simsbury Volunteer Ambulance Association tax return, 2022, Karen Stewart received a salary of $133,628. The revenues were $1,279,533, and the assets were $1,292,593. I'm supplying the link to the full tax return for review. The presentation identified areas where the town could identify the issues with various models. Privatization, division of the town, separate district and taxing authority, review financials and audits, and long-term and short-term solutions. There was no mention of having a private ambulance service, given presentations such as AMR ambulance that is used by Avon and Farmington with no issues. The interim town manager presented some budget ideas, some of which were an earlier date for review, expand capital budgets to 12 years, to expand it to additional years for large projects. The presentation appeared to reflect a zero-based budgeting process, with department heads prioritizing submissions. There are approximately 42 various boards and commissions and organizations under town oversight. Many of these organizations, although volunteer, require staff and input and are think tanks that should be separate from the town. Recently, I drove down Seminary Road to Firetown Road to the stop sign at the intersection. There were plantings on the island from the beautification committee that obstruct the line of sight. According to my measurements, the plantings were over 6 feet high and growing. I took a picture of the island and submitted it to Chief Bolter, complaining about the obstruction to my line of sight with no response. I took a picture to the, according to the Simsbury Police Department website, Traffic Safety and Enforcement, it states, for complex issues in local traffic authority groups consisting of the representatives from the town manager's office, public works, planning and land use, engineering, and the police department will discuss issues, report, and solutions collectively from the diverse professional perspectives. With over 100 traffic-related complaints each year, it is one of the most prevalent concerns of the community and one of our daily focus points, end quote. My concerns were not a complex issue, and it could be resolved with the trimming of the planting. I checked with the planning department for a zoning regulation for the height of the plantings on the islands under the direction of the beautification committee, and they were clueless on the regulations. I checked with the public works department and was told it was not under their direction. The deputy town manager suggested it might be the traffic authority. This urgency of the matter is not being addressed in a timely manner. It appears that nobody is in charge, and the beautification committee is a rogue organization with no discipline or direction from staff. The town spends time and money on policy statements, ordinances, and violations, but the chain of command has loose links. While all this is continuing, there is a serious safety issue that should be addressed immediately. After weeks of complaining, the plants were trimmed to about 2 feet from the ground. At the last Board of Selectmen meeting, there's a presentation from East Coast Greenway Study showing many roads through the Terriffill community. There were several areas of concern that need to be addressed with placement of the roads. However, there was no mention about the overhead costs of the future maintenance and responsibility to maintain additional road. As the road structure continues to grow, there should be a plan for maintenance of the projects. Presently, there are many trails that are not maintained on a regular schedule, leaving them with trash and in need of repairs. Public Works has a plan for paving roads. They should use the same discipline for walks and trails. With a new town manager and a newly elected board in November, the new board should send out an RFP for town attorney and labor attorney. Over the years, the town attorney DiCrescenzo has given opinions that have no legal substance. There were many ethical issues where DiCrescenzo did not file conflicts of interest forms addressing the Silverman Group when he was representing East Granby and Simsbury at the same time. DiCrescenzo, as town attorney, contributed to First Selectman Mary Glassman's campaign while representing Simsbury, a clear conflict of interest. There is rarely a prompt response to requests for legal opinions, and it is alleged that he builds a legal opinion on what staff would like to implement. It is time for a change. All of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch and Twitter at Joan Co. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joan. Okay, Susan?
Hi, good evening. Susan Messino, 41 Madison Lane. One thing I'm here to announce tonight is the grand finale of the Beaver Pond Wildlife docuseries, which will be on November 9th, 6 o'clock the social hour, 7 o'clock the film. The grand finale, like a fireworks display where you have some fireworks, then you have a whole big thing. It'll be like that, so it will include all the things, all the fun things of all the previous events of the docuseries. So we're having our Tex-Mex chili and the shrimp and the other side dishes. We will be giving away the bear deterrent whistles that we've advertised before, and I have a very abbreviated description for episode 5, which is fall winter. Foliage turns in time lapses from green to blazing autumn colors, and this footage is amazing that Ray's done. Wildlife is now preparing for winter. Beavers build food caches, the first snows arrive, and ponds are capped with ice. But beavers are still actively feeding and maintaining lodges. Muskrats find acorns on the ice, otters roll in the snow, beavers are heard vocalizing in the lodge. A merlin hunts by the pond, an otter feeds on fish. The general ecology of beaver pond habitat is discussed, including the eventual change from pond to meadow and the large range of wildlife that the habitat supports. So we're kind of wrapping it up at the Grange, but I did just talk to Real Artways in Hartford, and they're putting the full series on their catalog for schools where they pay for buses for kids to come and see movies at Real Artways. So it'll be there, and I'm also hoping to show it on the super big screen with amazing audio system at Cinestudio next year. So that's my plan, so you can still see it, and you can always see it for free on New England Forests, which is Ray Aslan's YouTube channel. And he is in the area filming a new film now that I hope to premiere next year. I will keep you posted. Okay, that's my one thing, and I probably have a minute left. Wendy, can you give me a time check?
2:56.
2:56. Oh, that's like plenty.
Lots of time.
Okay, lots of time. All right, I'm gonna hang on to one for myself. So, I also wanted to come by because I know the public hearing for the POCD is for tomorrow, and I saw it on your agenda tonight. I don't know what that's about. What I brought tonight is a draft. It's just from Open Space. It's not finalized, so it hasn't been sent in yet. I was waiting to see about getting comments. I know Tom Tyberski was out, so Tom Fitzgerald nicely sent it out. So just in case any of these are relevant to your discussion, particularly an implementation to basically update this interim POCD within 5 years. I'm not gonna go over all the details, but some of the rationale for doing it was that we wanna change the narrative, or we're in a new normal. And people thought it was a 5-year plan or it's a 10-year plan, and there was just a lot of confusion about the process. When can you submit comments? By the time you submit comments, it was too late. They were gonna make the document too long. It was gonna mess up the formatting. It was gonna take too much time. So we need to get ahead of this next time, like big time, and make sure that there's a really, well-publicized process that people can participate in. And also I hope there'll be a record of full public comments from this time, because I know a lot of comments were sent in and I don't know what's happening to them. I also wanted to share on the back side, I've been talking to Canton and like 5 other towns, and going through all the regs and talk to people that I was at these various housing forums at. I've been to at least 8. Like what are some common sense ways that we can achieve our goals? And unless we get some common sense options on the table, the town will be run over. There is no other option. So I really implore you to take this seriously, because I've been to all of these webinars and I've asked about these common sense options, and somehow all the experts running the webinars are not able to come up with anything that doesn't involve building a new building and or getting public land and giving it to developers. Literally, that's all the answers I ever get. And I just wanna say that I've been in this town for a long time. I looked around a lot before I moved my family here. We could have lived anywhere. We could have lived anywhere in the country. And I chose Simsbury, and I did that for a lot of reasons. And I found the town to be just a really generous community. People help each other, but it's not a town that does it with a lot of fanfare. When First Church was delivering food every day from Fitzgerald's, there wasn't a parade or a press release. When the Grange does stuff, we don't, have a parade or announce about it. It's just, we just do the work. And I think that we're allowed to be misportrayed as, unwelcoming and all this kind of stuff because we're just not kind of leaning on our real values and our history with women's rights and civil rights and all that kind of stuff. And I really hope that the leaders that are still here right now and the leaders that'll be taking over from you will have the nerve to stand up for the town on those principles, because if you don't, I know what will happen.
It's time.
Susan, thank you for moving to town. We're a better town because you
Well,
moved here, so
thank
thank you for
you.
choosing. When you
Oh,
handed
yeah,
this
sorry.
out, just a real question though.
Yeah.
So are these not being accepted and being deliberated as part of?
No,
your
I'm gonna
team's-
submit them, I was
Okay.
just waiting to
I
hear
wanted to make
back.
sure you were saying that if you said I thought you said this is maybe for 5 years down or next time down the road, that's what I was worried.
Oh, I'll just clarify that,
Please.
because we did send in a whole bunch of comments.
Yeah,
And they were considered like, oh, we can't deal with these. So I don't know how many other comments were sent in that were kind of, not incorporated into this current plan, and maybe there might be an opportunity, I would just like the record saved, like Katie said before. I mean, I've had this experience multiple times, is you send in all these comments and then you sort of thought as a citizen that there's some kind of like way that that's kind of going forward with an issue, but it's not necessarily true, and Eric knows about some issues like that when he was selectman, so I'm hoping that the comments will be carried forward, the full record. These here are, I didn't submit them yet because I was just waiting to see if anyone had any comments before I submitted them officially. One other tiny note about that, I noticed that the public comment session closes before the start of the public hearing, which seems a little bit weird, because what if you hear something at the public hearing that you wanna comment on? Then you can't do that. So there's been just like a lot of weird things, and I think we should, I don't know.
so if I just sum that up, your team's asks, these are sort of the primary asks, the ones you're most concerned with?
No,
These
we
are
had
still, I know you have a whole
multiple-
list of stuff,
we had a whole
you're
bunch of
highlighting
stuff.
something here.
I highlighted the absolute minimum
Correct, that's
things
my
that I
point.
could boil it down
So these
to.
are, these would be the ones you would expect that the group that oversights you, the commission that oversights would push forward as changes to the P O C D.
Yes, I
You would
went over
expect
it and
that.
over it to
Okay.
winnow it down to the very, very, very minimum.
I will make a comment that Aaron Levitt-Smith did come to open space to sit down and go through a lot of the concerns and requests and why some were included and why some were not included in the P O C D. So if you're gonna present these tomorrow night at the hearing, or you submit these to
I'm
them?
gonna submit them and then maybe
Okay.
just mention them at the
Okay.
hearing tomorrow night or whatever.
But
I have a couple things on my
Were
notes
they
here.
also presented at that meeting and ahead of time to the planning and P O C D when we sat down at open space?
Yes.
So they've already considered these and may or may not have not included these at this point.
Right, and
Okay.
the one other thing that happened at the last open space meeting was I had met with sustainability because we had some comments, and planning said, well, we don't know if open space talked to sustainability about this. In the meantime, I did meet with sustainability, so I'm putting that stuff in there to say that we did meet with sustainability and they agreed. I mean, I knew we would agree, so that was no issue really.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
thank you.
Thank you. I think Lori, our last public audience.
I am Lori Boyko from 15 Oakhurst Road, and I have two topics that I'm gonna cover. The first one I added based on public comment that I heard. So I was here the last time some people from Cambridge Crossing spoke, and I've been a Realtor for 25 years plus, and I had concerns then that the town was going to end up bearing cost as a result of the developers going under, and of course we are because we have a tax issue. But I think I've gotten a little bit of a reputation of being the person who's willing to say something that might be really unpopular. And while my heart breaks for those people and the homes that they either can't move into or are moving into with an incomplete neighborhood, they did enter into contracts, private contracts with a developer to purchase homes. So my concern becomes the rest of us in the community bearing the cost of that situation when it's really a legal situation between the developer and the homeowners. My taxes increased 35% on my property this year, as I have not missed an opportunity to let everybody know. My mortgage payment has gone up $250 a month on my taxes alone. My home and many others in this town are valued significantly less than the homes that were purchased by those people. Many of my friends around town have had flooded basements in the last few months whose insurance companies, for various reasons, don't cover those issues. I have a private road at the end of my street that I don't live on, but 4 houses are there. It's sort of a loose private road where the residents are responsible for plowing themselves collectively. It's not a formal agreement, but they have to hire a contractor. They are responsible for paving the road, and the school bus is not allowed to go down that road. They're responsible for their road maintenance. If the residents can't collectively pay for their plowing for some legal reasons, I'm not sure if there's town increased liability if the town decides to start plowing those roads and a plow does some kind of damage or personal injury. So I have I love the town and their compassion and willingness to help people, but I have some real questions about private situations and the town, which is not the town, it's all of us that pay our taxes and live here, and our responsibility to bail people out of unfortunate situations. So I just wanted to get that on the record. I don't have the answers, by the way, and I haven't fully
You
investigated.
have 2 minutes now.
Okay, so this ship has also already sailed, but I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I'm not mad at anybody. There's sometimes when you've been doing things one way, you don't realize that maybe you should rethink how they're being done. Simsbury Main Street Partnership describes their organization as a 501c3, quote, not for-profit organization, and says, quote, we focus on progressive economic development, recreation, tourism, and historic preservation so that all Simsbury's assets and legacy can be leveraged for our prosperity. They say every business matters, that they build community success through consensus and cooperation, and that they initiate and facilitate what they call non-political dialogue. The truth is that while Executive Director Sarah Nielsen is well respected and has done some tremendous economic development work for the town, she works for a board of directors comprised of a small group of business owners with personal business interests who are awarded $50,000 of our tax money every year for what amounts to their personal individual business marketing budgets. According to their website, the board currently consists of President Rich Correa, a commercial realtor who makes commission off every lease or sale he closes. I may be mistaken, but I don't think he's even a Simsbury resident. Sarah Burns is listed on the website as on the board, yet moved her business out of Simsbury to Granby. There are others, of course, whose own businesses or homes, they own businesses or homes in town, but they too have proprietary interests.
20 seconds.
Oh, God. All right, I'll come back next time. If in fact we truly determine that we need as a town, for the benefit of the residents of this town, specific economic development, there are ways to do that. But this is a perfect example of taxation without representation. Thank you.
And I'm down. Thank you.
I had it on another page, but it's.
Okay. So anyone else here for public audience? Okay, now we can move into the presentation section. And we have with us Nancy Sheets from the Farmington Valley VNA to present VNA to us.
I even get to use the clicker. This is very big.
Down, goes forward.
Okay. Here we go. Hi, Board of Selectmen, it's been a while. I'm Nancy Sheets, for those of you that don't know me, and up until March, I lived on Harvest Hill in Simsbury, so this was my home and my place of work. I did recently move, which just breaks my heart. But I'm here representing the Farmington Valley VNA, a business who is a nonprofit organization, a licensed Medicare certified home care and hospice agency. We have been in your community for over 115 years, actually. We're just passing that milestone. And we have done a number of things for decades, but one of the things is that we have contracts with many of our towns in the Farmington Valley. Simsbury is one of them. So I'm here to just thank you for always being a partner with us, but B, to refresh for those of you that may or may not know some of the things that we do on your behalf for public health initiatives. Because you do give us a fair amount of money every year, and I've always been grateful for that. But it's allowed us to continue to be a VNA that does have a lot of community outreach. A lot of my colleagues and partners throughout the state do not do the things that we do. They do not have the close ties and relationships with their towns like we do. And, you know, it comes down to dollars and cents, but we have been very fortunate that Simsbury has been one of the towns that has always supported us. So it's fun to kind of come around and to share with you the things that we do with all of your financial support. We are located at Old Mill Lane, if for those of you that do not know that. It's the little cut-through street off of West Street. We're right behind the ambulance company. We share a parking lot with them. We are a nonprofit, 501c3, and we have honestly been, I'm not even sure how long we have partnered with the town of Simsbury, but we've been providing you public health initiatives forever. What that means for you is that we do a lot of things that are old-fashioned but grassroots kind of nursing efforts. We do blood pressure clinics, blood glucose clinics. We do vaccine and COVID vaccination clinics. We have a number of public clinics in Simsbury for vaccines. And interestingly enough, while this is not something that is traditional to VNAs any longer, we give over 2,000 vaccines every year just for the flu. We were fortunate because of our connections with all of our towns. We partnered with the health district when it was the COVID time. And with the health district, the two of us and a number of partners gave over 10,000 vaccines in 4 months' time. So it's amazing what you can do when you kind of have the right relationships. And that was one of the things that just sort of happened. When an emergency happens, we sit on your Public Safety Commission, which is an amazing group that I've been very fortunate to be a part of, that we will continue to be a part of. But it's automatic that no matter what happens and what occurs, you were already there as a team captain, and we kind of know how to pitch in and help out. So that was just a phenomenal experience, actually. We do partner with some of your other organizations like fire, social services, ambulance, and we're all trying to work together with EMS and first responders to try to figure out one of the very basic but very simple things that happens all of the time. People fall and they utilize resources and they call for lift assist, and is there a way for us as a whole bunch of people that at different levels could provide a different service? So we are a part of the Steps to Safety program, and it was exciting. We got notice about a week or two ago. I had applied on behalf of the group for one of the Hartford Foundation's grants recently for the Simsbury Together fund, and we were awarded $10,000 to assist us with that project. So again, another way that we can spend some time based on your support to do some of those things. Of the most important things that your money does is that you help fund a program for us. Oh, am I past by 5 minutes?
No, you don't have the time.
Like, I didn't think I did, but I'm like, and Lord knows I'm never under 5 minutes. We have a program called Health Supervision. Insurance companies pay for healthcare to a degree, but there are limits and there are time constraints. And sometimes an insurance company thinks that you're all better and that you're all done and you don't need to have the services that we can provide for you. So we're constantly always trying to work hard on getting authorizations, but when the care stops, the care stops. from the payer source. But a lot of times we know that that just isn't really gonna be, they're not gonna be done. And health supervision is funded largely by towns as well as our donors. And it provides a free clinical skilled visit. So I might know that Edna, who's gonna come off service next week, really isn't ready, she doesn't know how to take her medications, she's still not following the right diet, her blood pressure's still all over the place, but because she's not improving, Medicare says, you're all done, you're kind of stable. So we can continue to provide a nurse and or some of our rehab team, and they go in and they visit her every 3 to 4 weeks. And they kind of keep up with what she's doing and try to keep reminding her. It's nowhere in the world you're gonna find something like that. So I'm real excited that honestly, of the most important things that your money funds, you fund that. And it's amazing. And sometimes, you know, especially in the world of always worrying about equity and making sure that everybody kind of has access to care, that program allows us to kind of flex things in a lot of ways. And in a lot of situations where we might get a call from ambulance because they're worried about so-and-so in someone's house, or social services might call us, or senior services might call us, and because they notice someone's not out and about, and we can kind of go into their home and try to make an assessment with skilled team and figure out what we can do to help keep them in their home, keep them safe, or avoid going into the hospital. All funded because of partially your dollars. We offer CPR and AED education. We partnered up with ambulance a while ago because that's always something that's, you know, trying to have mass clinics where you can train people. We learned from the fire department how to do fit testing ourselves. When COVID hit, you had to have you know, the proper equipment and required masks that were fit tested to you. Most of us in the community don't have fit test masks because you only require those in a hospital on reverse isolation. But now we're faced with a public health emergency that required that. But you can't just throw on a mask and hope that it's tight and it's gonna work. You have to be actually tested to a specific mask in your face. Our fire department had people that were trained in fit testing. They then trained us, and now we can do that for other people. And that was pretty significant impact, because where some of my colleagues were struggling to get that done, ours was done overnight. Granby, Simsbury Chamber of Commerce has been one of the ways that I have extended beyond like the healthcare, just to see whether or not we could also partner with the businesses in town. And we do support the Housing Authority. We've tried to partner with them. I know they're trying to resurrect the friendly AARP designation of senior-friendly communities. So we had taken part in that organization. So a lot of the things that we do is based on the fact that we have the ability to, because you help fund that. The big important thing that I wanted to share with you too tonight, though, is that I forget I have a clicker, hold on. I'm supposed to advance this. Farmington Valley VNA, as special as it is, and as much as we loved being independent and small and local, we have to face the reality of the healthcare world today. And the way to secure our future and our viability was to make sure that we could find the right partner. We needed to partner with another like organization. And Visiting Nurse and Hospice of Litchfield County is exactly who we came to terms with. They are much like our organization. It started out as Foothills VNA in Winstead. They then brought on Salisbury VNA, all of us little nonprofits and independents who all have over 100 years in existence. We really do believe that we give care in a different way. Our benchmarks are usually better than the bigger box visiting nurse associations. And we really have a mission not only just to meet certain goals, but to have outreach within communities. So for our VNA to find one that has a similar mission statement and also a nonprofit reach, they then took on Bantam, VNA Northwest in Bantam, and now we are fortunate. VNHLC has taken on the Farmington Valley Visiting Nurse Association. So we are now owned by them, the Litchfield Group. We are the Simsbury branch. We will remain an affiliate our name will still be the name because we're not in Litchfield County. Our building is still our building, our clinical teams and our staff are still our teams. Really, for the most part, it's, you will not have an interruption in the services that you get. All of my community nurses are still in place, still doing all the things that we've always done. It just means one change in leadership. And I am passing the torch to my colleague, Michael Casellas, who is here. He is the Executive Director of Visiting Nurse and Hospice of Litchfield County. So instead of it being me moving forward to bring to you what we do and to meet with you, it will be Mike. So I wanted to give you his name, introduce you to him, his contact information, and to say thank you for incredible 9 years. Any questions I can answer for you in
Anybody
terms
have
of what
any
we do?
questions for Nancy?
I guess I just wanted to apply, I mean, I obviously I don't know the details of your merger and what necessitated that, but I applaud you and I don't want you to feel like that's something that all of a sudden it's not a local organization anymore. I think in many cases you can be much stronger when you bring in other resources. So thanks for thinking that way.
You know, and in all honesty, it was the Farmington Valley VNA has just been here forever. People know us, they call us, and the only way to substantiate and to kind of set us up with some security in order to continue to stay here is to have a partner that does the same thing in another part of the state. And we just are all banding together, and it really enabled the VNA to stay exactly where it is and to kind of do exactly what it does. So otherwise, it would have been much more difficult to kind of compete with the bigger organizations who really do business very differently, who most likely would not continue the town initiatives that we do. So I'm really grateful to Mike and to the Litchfield group, and I'm confident that it will all be very smooth sailing going forward.
Okay.
So it'll be seamless, there'll be no changes for you guys, and I just wanted to say that I actually started my home care career 20 years ago at the Farmington Valley VNA. I was the CFO there, so I remember coming to these meetings, so it's good for me to come back to the area and looking forward to it. And if anybody ever needs anything, as you contacted Nancy, just contact me, you'll always get a call back. I'll always take care of the residents, and like I said, for the board, for the town, it's a seamless transition.
I have one quick question. So you guys, we provide outside agency funding during our budget every year. And I'm assuming you're gonna come back this year. Would I assume that the ask will be just really focused on the Farmington Valley VNA only?
Yes.
Okay.
And Mike has, I should have said this, but I didn't. One of the great things that made this an easy fit, Mike having been with our agency, when he went to Foothills, they have more public contracts than the VNA does. So he does the same stuff with his towns in all of his territories. It will be, but when our funding, again, just like, because I have funding for Farmington, I have funding but your dollars are spent for the Simsbury and the town residents. And I do different things in Simsbury than what I do in Farmington. It's all how it gets kind of configured out.
Preemptively ask that question.
So we can, just because you're gonna get it from the Board of Finance, sorry, that just, so there's a clear delineation between no commingling between accounts that provide direct services for Simsbury versus administration for the organization. I think that's one of the big things you'll need to work on.
Correct.
No doubt they will trust you, but that'll be something they'll zero in on. Understandably so.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
Nancy.
you.
Okay, we have a second presentation tonight, and this is, we have Tom Fitzgerald. Tom, you're gonna do it? With assistance from Trish, and it's on the fair
If they
rent
want to
commission.
chime in.
So just a little background, there's tonight's agenda, we're gonna ask for a public hearing on the Fair Rent Commission and the town code around it and ordinance. And so we asked Tom to present some of the data because some of us weren't born, I was born, but some weren't born when this was last in effect, so.
This would be my line. I was gonna say I wasn't born when this was made.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even see that.
That's
Okay, say it again.
One of the major reasons why we're also updating. Kristen and Trish did a very heavy lift of this, so they should be thanked and acknowledged first. So some background information. So the Fair Rent Commission, we have one. It was adopted in June of 1986, and last met in November of 1990. So that's also part of why we wanted to update this to get it moving again. It came up on December in 2021. You had a public hearing to consider, among other things, kind of sunsetting some other boards and commissions that hadn't met in a while, and this was one of those. You decided to not do that, and so then it wasn't sunsetted. The Fair Rent Commission has the power to study, investigate, and conduct hearings relative to complaints received about rental charges and accommodations. And the Fair Rent Commission further has the power to issue subpoenas, administer oaths, and issue orders of corrective measures. So part of the reason why I wanted to give you a quick presentation today is later in your packet you have a schedule a public hearing for amendments that Kristen, Trish, and I sat down and did about the current ordinance. So we want to give you a background on what the Fair Rent Commission is. So there's a new state statute from 2022 requiring a local Fair Rent Commission if you have a population greater than 25,000 people as of the 2020 census. Simsbury is 24,517, so we are just below it, but at the next census we'll probably be above it. So this is more of a looking forward type thing to have it amended. On February 13th, 2023, the town sent a letter to the Department of Housing that we have a Fair Rent Commission. We did put in there that it had not met in over 30 years. So with recent legislation coupled with the rising number of resident complaints that we saw this year particularly, we reached out, Kristen, Trish, and I, kind of saying, hey, we should probably look into updating this. So some highlighted proposed ordinance changes. You'll see in the packet that you have the whole thing. This is just a few of them. So to begin with, we sat down for an initial meeting, three of us, to kind of go over the current ordinance and kind of look at what needed to be done to modernize it. Kristen took the lead and really kind of went through her the current version, redlined it, and then Trish and I came into another group, reviewed her work, and we collaboratively came up with the document that's in front of you after a couple meetings. So some of them that we proposed are, I'm changing it from 7 members to 5 with 2 alternates. It'll help make meeting quorums easier. Those alternates can plug into any of those 5 members that aren't able to make that meeting. And they can still go to the meeting even if they're an alternate and there's the other 5, they can still go. So we wanted to update the term dates for members. So we have a clear kind of outline of your term ends on November 30th. That was in the ordinance. We want to outline, okay, your term's coming to an end. Here's the period of notification that the board has so that you can actively start finding a replacement. So there isn't a vacancy for an extended period of time. We have recommendations for appointments coming from the town manager to the Board of Selectmen. This is similar to the November 2018 version of the Business Development Incentive Committee. The YSB and JRB, the Social Services Director, is able to appoint people to that. Anything for an outside group comes from the Social Service Director to you guys for those boards. So this would kind of follow those ways, and it was a way for us to, for the town manager's office, or to find kind of the most qualified candidates to fill the roles it needed. Minority party representation would still have to be followed by the board. And then we really want to designate the Board of Selectmen with the authority to revise the rules and regulations for the Fair Rent Commission. The current ordinance lets the commission update their own rules and regulations however they want, so they can kind of spin off and do almost kind of what they wanted. So we wanted to really have you guys be the ones that set the template for them and then have them go on behalf of you. So while we were working on updating the ordinance, we figured we're here. We should update the rules of procedure to fit 2023 instead of 1990 or 1986. So we went ahead and did that for you guys. You'd still approve them. So some recommendations we're making are limited to 2 consecutive terms. This is similar to the EDC. as well as establishing a regularly scheduled housekeeping meeting every 2 years to elect the chair, the vice chair, the secretary. So part of our thing was having the commission members be offsetting terms. So not the whole board changing over every, I believe we did 4 years. So this is why every 2 years you do a housekeeping meeting, elect a new chair, a vice chair, and the secretary. And then the meetings would be on an as-needed basis. Some meetings there isn't a need for fair rent commission, so then the director of community social services or their designee could call a meeting, it'd be a special meeting, it would follow all the FOIA guidelines and everything like that. And then we clearly wanted to point out the number of affirmative votes necessary to take action. This something came up from, actually this is a recommendation from planning. You wanna clearly state a yes is, in this case, 3 of 5 votes. You don't want 1 yes and 4 abstentions, and that counts as a yes. You wanna clearly define what an affirmative action was needed. These are just recommendations you can tweak. So we also wanted to
Tom,
have,
what's quorum? What would quorum be for the commission?
oh, with 5 members, it'd be 3.
So you have to have 3 when there's only 3 people there?
Yes, you have to have 3 of 5.
That doesn't work. We're gonna have to think that through. Cause that's not a supermajority, that's an
You'd have to,
everybody.
then, I see what you're saying, then you'd have to have 2.
I get the point of not letting people abstain, but you can't require the entire commission to all vote in the same action, if that's quorum.
Thank you, Mr.
You'll meet shortly.
That's not a big deal, we can change that when we find problems.
So we also wanted to give you a proposed timeline for, like we said, this kind of came out of creation from, this summer, we had a lot of phone calls. And so we wanted to have a proposed timeline for you, so you can kind of see whether this would be active. So today you have the presentation and also proposed public hearing to schedule for the November 13th meeting. At that meeting, you would hear public comment. If you are okay with the public comment and the proposed ordinance as it's in front of you, you can accept it. And then it goes through the timeline of the 21 days after becoming in effect. But while that's working, we can call for volunteers to submit their volunteer forms through the town clerk's website or the town of Simsbury's webpage. And that way we can start finding candidates to bring from the town manager to the board of selectmen for appointment. Hopefully appointed by the new board of selectmen in January at one of your meetings there. And then we can really start having hearings as early as February 2024. And that's it.
So, yeah, if we have questions.
That was part of the process of looking at committees to sunset, this was one we discussed at the time. My understanding was that the duties of this commission would be carried out by social services. But if I'm understanding correctly, what's changed since then is that there's a lot more issues being raised, that need to be handled, and that's why you want the help of the committee to vet those. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. Where's the best place to stand for the answer?
The mic will pick you up anywhere.
Right, the owl is probably smarter than I am. So you're correct, we decided that we really needed to bring the Fair Rent Commission back into play because the issues that are being brought forth to my office as well as the town manager's office are well beyond the scope and powers of my actual position. The complaints that we're hearing are on a near daily basis of folks that are reaching out to us because of multitude of issues, mostly because rents are being increased disproportionately to what people can afford. We're seeing rents that are going up anywhere between $200 and $500 a month, as we heard from other people. All of our costs are increasing. So it's a real problem between landlord and tenant. And we're also getting a lot of complaints of absentee management companies. So a lot of larger management companies have bought a lot of our rental complexes, and many of them aren't located even in Connecticut. So folks are having a really hard time, much like we heard with our other folks this evening with homeowners. We've got management companies that people can't reach. So we decided that the best answer would be to bring back the Fair Rent Commission, because the Fair Rent Commission does have the capacity and the authority to persuade and make changes in these instances. So that's why we decided to do this. And the other piece which I shared last week at our public safety meeting is we're also seeing an incredible spike in evictions. And in the last 6 months I've been in this position, not here in Simsbury, but similarly since 2003. And I've done more evictions in the last 6 months than my whole entire career. And over the summer I had a record of having 5 homes in storage at the same time. So it's a huge problem for the community. People are being forced out of town. And as an aside, not that it matters, but it's causing a lot more work for our office too. So it's a lot for us to manage. And we wanna try to be able to fairly help these people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So since you guys are here now and we're gonna vote on it later, maybe we could ask our questions now if we had any, so later we can just kind of I just had a question. I mean, it sounds the makeup of the chart, the code is fairly serious in the ability to subpoena people and get sort of information like that. Do you do anything bringing in legal counsel, or is it all up to the commission?
So we will have legal counsel. Bob will be at our go-to for this commission. And my understanding is that we have the authority to put those things into place. If landlords don't comply, then we would then forward them to housing court, and housing court has the ability to uphold our decisions. So that's where we have like that legal protection.
Okay, and the other question I had was, you know, with all the rent increases and things that, you know, the people buying the, some of us have heard from renters personally, things like that. If that tends to queue up at some point and there's no scheduled meeting, can we reach out to you and the town manager to try to get one on the books?
Yes, absolutely. Once this is, once we have the green light and we've got members in place and they've been sworn in, that is the intention of how we've designed the procedures, is that there's not gonna be regularly scheduled meetings because we might not always need a meeting, but any special meeting can be called by me or my designee from my office.
Okay, and then one last question, will we have a liaison from the Board of Selectmen on this commission? Just
Well,
curious,
I suppose that will be up to
just to have,
the incoming board
can
or
talk
upcoming
about that
board,
with
but
the town manager.
I would probably assume so, since you do for all the
Yeah,
other
just to hear
ones.
what's going on and stuff like that.
We never appointed anyone in the past because they didn't meet.
Right. It wasn't happening.
92, I think it was.
1990. So do we, thank you. Do we have do you talk with your peers? I'm sure we wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't.
I can answer that already.
Awesome. I'm sure we wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't a result that can come from the activities of the organization. So do we, just anecdotally, a community locally that has a similar organization that gets results?
Yes, so I've been very proactive in this, and there's a group of us, and this is a presentation that will be coming to the new board. There's a group of us that are working with the Farmington Valley Health Districts and all of our cohorts on the opioid funding and what our regional plan is going to be for the opioid funding. I'm ready to go with our town proposed plan. We're very close to a regional plan, and then I wanna come to the board with all of that. The reason why I'm telling you that is that that's our cohort, and at our meeting last week, I proactively asked if we could come together as a group to talk about fair rent. And Nancy in Farmington is going to take the lead on that because her commission's been very active. And I'm also hoping to have the opportunity, and perhaps maybe Trish and Tom to maybe attend one of their hearings so that we can really see how they're done before we try to do this ourselves.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, thank you, really nicely done.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to us.
Okay, I'm gonna try to breeze through the first selectmen's report, because we have a long agenda tonight. Just apologize that we haven't been here since September. I also want to just make a personal statement. I've had people reach out to me about what's going on over in Middle East, and that's not my style to make a statement regarding things that are going on. But I do want to make a personal statement about some of the anti-Semitism that has cropped up in the Farmington Valley over the last couple of weeks, and that it's not welcome here. And I also wanna thank our Simsbury Police Department that they've spent a lot of times and resources. There was a bomb threat at the temple that turned out to be a hoax. There was one in West Hartford. There were flyers distributed that to Avon and Simsbury that were representing a hate group. Our PD has taken initiative on those. And so I just wanted to comment on that, thank them for that, and just make that as a little statement here. To get on to other things, the Thursday, I believe it's Thursday, is the Interval House Breakfast of Champions. And we have a table going of leaders and members of boards and commissions from the town. And State Senator Lisa Seminara will be there, as will State Representative Melissa Osborne. And I believe you can still get a table and sign up for it if you would like to do that. And it's basically free, but they ask for donations, and we'll provide that information there. Later tonight, we'll be discussing the town manager contract, and may come out of executive session to, if we agree and approve that. So, that will be coming, and if that does happen, we will have a new town manager on January 8th of 2024. Tomorrow night is the POCD hearing. We're gonna talk about it tonight at the board level, just to discuss it. And then, members of the community can go tomorrow night to speak. I wanna thank the Simsbury Senior Center and the Aging and Disability Commission for the lunch and fashion show this week. I do wanna say that Selectman Gatz and I had a blast going as the bride and groom, that we showed our bipartisan union. We both found our outfits at the Faber thrift shop as we were required to, so. The ribbon cutting for the East Coast Greenway will be coming up sometime in November. That will be announced here, but we look forward to joining all the partners on that. That will be a really big deal. Clifton had his gotcha day last week, so it's been a year since we've had Clifton, and I'm personally a fan because I love dogs. So just wanted to call out that. And then the last thing I want to say is not everybody was at the public safety meeting last Thursday morning. And it was Sean's last meeting as chair, and he was shown a lot of appreciation by all the members of the community, Nancy did tonight, and I just wanna call out that we will miss him leading that commission because he's really done a phenomenal job for 12 years,
Just about.
since you were a kid,
Yeah.
a 29-year-old kid. So I just wanted to share that, and thanks Sean for that. Okay, and now I'm gonna turn it over to our town manager.
Thank you, Wendy. Three brief comments. You have at your places operating assistance grant from the Greater Hartford Transit District for the annual dial-a-ride contract. So we request that you add that to the agenda by motion, requiring a vote of 2/3 of the board for consideration during this meeting. Department news and notes, the Public Works Department hosted the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day on Saturday, October 7th. It was a very successful event. Some 793 vehicles participated. And these collection days provide an opportunity to dispose of items that cannot go into the regular trash, keeping hazardous materials from being deposited into the landfill. Next collection is Saturday, April 20th, 2024. That will be in Farmington. And as usual, residents can find more information about these household hazardous waste collection days at the Simsbury website under Public Works Household Hazardous Waste Collection. And finally, Public Works will be collecting bagged leaves between November 27th and December 7th, weather permitting. You may place your bagged leaves curbside the night before or by 6 a.m. on the morning of your street's collection. No item should be placed in the street or in any way block a sidewalk. All leaves must be contained in biodegradable paper bags, no plastic bags, etc. Under no circumstances should residents blow their leaves or rake their leaves into the road. That would be hazardous. Residents can also bring their bagged leaves and grass clippings to the bulky waste facility during normal hours at no charge. Facility is open Wednesdays and Saturdays from 8 AM to 3 PM. And all of this information is provided on the Public Works leaf collection page, which will indicate the anticipated schedule for the bag leaf program between the 27th of November and the 7th of December, weather permitting. Thank you.
Before I forget, and could I ask for a motion to add this agenda item?
With that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the Greater Hartford Transit will be item J on the agenda. Thank you. Okay, let's get to Selectman Liaison and Subcommittee reports. Let's start with Heather, if she has anything.
I just have one. I attended the first Main Street meeting as liaison. And they kind of recapped the taste, kind of closed that out. It was their best year yet, which is great. And then they discussed some fundraising initiatives for Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Shop Local. It was kind of a broad, they didn't really land anywhere, it was just kind of brainstorming, so kind of that.
Thanks. Sean?
As Wendy said, it was the public safety meeting last week. First want to thank my partner Chris for being there with me for the last 6 years. Enjoyed his partnership. He's filled in more than a few times to make sure that meeting's run well. So Chris, thank you for that. Interestingly enough, despite what we heard at public comment, AMR is struggling with their own staffing, and in fact, we have had to respond to Avon on a number of occasions recently. We being Simsbury ambulance. So I believe what we're hearing is that ambulance service statewide is continued to be challenged with the professionals needed. So we are working through obviously our own challenges locally, and there is a short-term funding plan, and I know there's a larger discussion to be had during the next budget period. I believe the finance director and the town manager are reviewing financials and are putting together a report for this board and for the Board of Finance to move forward to help facilitate that budgetary discussion. But the grass isn't always greener with a private organization. So I think we need to make sure that we thoughtfully review what our decisions are. And I do remind folks, as we've talked about ad nauseum, we don't have the ability to just change services. That's not how the ambulance business works. There is a state process, and our ambulance partners hold the license to respond both as paramedics and as EMTs. And that is not something that is just taken away and redistributed. There is a very regimented process, as you can imagine. It is not subject to political winds. It is subject to true negligence. And the bar is pretty high in that is a regimented state process. So there will be much more to come there. There were also a number of items that came out of the public safety meeting, which I know Tom and Lee are helping put together. It was suggested that perhaps a blast to public safety members and of course the Board of Selectmen, all the updates. You heard some of them with the fall initiatives. Senior Center obviously with their annual appeal and help for folks with oil assistance, and too many a number of initiatives for me to remember right now, but again, a good reminder for us all coming out of that meeting. So
I was gonna add, it was actually Chris Peterson's idea, because there were so many different items and public safety issues that are discussed at that meeting, to find a way to share that kind of maybe on a regular basis. So the idea came out maybe of doing some sort of public safety newsletter or just some sort of attention. So just wanted to give Chris that kudo. Just one thing I'm gonna mention is a finance subcommittee, not the finance board, I'm not talking about what they're doing, but finance subcommittee hasn't met. We did a lot with ARPA, last year. But Amy has provided a list of potential projects and things that this group can work on over the next year and stuff. So we're trying to get a meeting together with the current finance subcommittee and Amy and Lee to sit down and see what makes sense so that we can kind of do some things that are productive.
I have no updates tonight.
No updates.
Okay, so now we can get into selectmen action. The first item is to set the public hearing, right, for this guy. Oh, no, we're actually gonna adopt the proposal, sorry, there's two public hearings coming, we've already done this one. So we've already talked about this tonight, we closed the public hearing, ask for a motion effective October 23rd, 2023 to adopt the proposed revisions to the town code section 85-6.1 complex projects as presented, which shall be effective 21 days after publication in a newspaper having circulation within the town of Simsbury. Further move to authorize a summary of the adopted ordinance be published.
Move that.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any
For
further discussion? Sure.
Discussion.
Yeah, I was just curious why they weren't recommending we expand this to the other land use bodies. Cause it could arise and then they'd have to come back here and amend the code.
But isn't it a separate code? That's the zoning and conditions code is different than the inland wetlands code. So wouldn't the zoning commission have to recommend that and take that on themselves?
So I think Selectman Hellman is asking why didn't the zoning commission
I thought he was asking if we
request same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I think that's what you're
They
asking.
did, yeah, that's
So-
what- there's
so,
context there. I'm not asking you to speak for them.
Yeah, and I can't, I will tell you the tenor of the conversation was, is that the zoning commission tends to have in-house expertise on the primary issues that the zoning commission is faced with, such as the town engineer's ability to review stormwater and traffic and those kinds of things. They did have a discussion at a commission meeting, at a zoning commission meeting, where they felt that number was appropriate for them.
Alright, thank you.
That the threshold was appropriate.
It's interesting that, I mean, just it's sort of an arbitrary number that, I applaud all the, I applaud all the members of all the commissions and committees, right? I mean, it's a volunteer and, but I don't know, I think this should be something that the town should press forward with, whether it's in the charter or whatever it is, to look at whatever that number is for how expertise is determined for projects. I mean, we're sitting here being faced with a group of active residents in a really crappy position. And who knows, I'm not saying that project didn't go through the right channels and all the questions that could have been asked were answered and every I was dotted and every T was crossed. Certainly it would meet, I think it would meet the letter of the 100,000 square foot and 200 dwelling, whatever. But that just concerns me that we find ourselves in that position, and could that have been avoided because people asked for help, not telling someone they need help, but people asked for help for outside assistance. And then there was a lower threshold to seek it and apply the costs to someone else. Remember, this costs are not being bared by the taxpayers, they're being borne by the developer. And possibly in that instance, with the developer's results, would the results out of that development been different if the costs were being borne by the developer? So I just ask that the commissions and committee in the future look long and hard at this and say, are we working with the right trigger points to press for outside expertise?
There'll be some turnover on the zoning commission, be happy to bring that to them and have them discuss it.
Just be self-reflective, folks, and ask them.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that. The next item on the agenda is just a discussion of the plan of conservation and development, the POCD. The reason it's on the agenda tonight is to give the board opportunities to bring up any issues that they'd like to bring up. If there's any consensus among the board of items that we would like to forward to the planning commission, we are all able to bring our options, our ideas to the planning commission tomorrow night at the hearing. And as George has sent in a letter from August, that we can endorse it, we can reject it, we can provide comment, we can simply receive it without comment. But I just thought it was worthy of being on the agenda tonight. And one thing I did reach out, and I was gonna ask Sean, since he was the only one, I think the only one that was here for the last P O C D, just to kind of say, you know, what the board did at that point in time to just for comparison.
I'm pretty sure we sent it back with limited comment. I don't recall exactly what we did, but I think the Board of Selectmen, at least when I've been around, has taken the position to stay at arm's length when it comes to land use. As that is essentially not what we're elected for. The land use commissions are elected for land use. And if there was something egregious or if there was something, you know, completely missed, that we might have a role in that space. But as long as it was following the spirit of what we believe to be consistent with the town, again, I mean, we can take any. And again, George, just reject doesn't actually mean reject, right?
No, it doesn't, it simply forces
We're an advisory opinion, we don't actually count,
It
right?
forces a supermajority at the planning commission.
Correct,
It
but
doesn't
we
in fact,
can't
yeah.
stop the POC.
That's correct.
Right, so it's, yeah.
Reject is the language of the statute.
It's much like the union contracts, we can't actually say no to them, we either take no action or they just happen. Right,
And it
the
al-
teachers union
sorry.
contracts,
It
sorry.
also comes back to us later, after it's completed, all the comments are included, correct? That was what Erin had said.
It comes back to you.
To the board for a vote.
It does not.
Okay, that's
We
what
have no
she
say.
told me that,
It does
no?
not.
Their board, yes, our board, no.
Okay, that was
Yeah, we have no legislative authority over them.
The statute charges the elected planning commission with that
Okay.
responsibility.
Okay, that's
Correct.
I have a quick question. When putting the P O C D together, you know, obviously you look at the resident input and meetings and all sorts of things, but does the charrette that was put in place years ago, does that come into play at all in any aspect of?
So it does, there's a large section of the draft POCD that'll be up for public hearing tonight that carries forward the sentiments, the policies, the drawings, and the results of the 2012 charrette. So yeah, it plays a very significant role in how we develop what we call the center zone or Simsbury Center.
George, just a follow-up on that, do they still have a road go through my church? The charrette had it.
That came up at one of the hearings about use of individual properties, and so those charrette drawings are still there. They are conceptual in nature.
Oh, yeah, I believe the term was illustrative, right? That's what
Illustrative.
Hiram used to tell me it was illustrative and that I shouldn't worry about voting on it. Was the advice I was given when I was on planning. Just say we never voted on it when I was on planning.
Any comments? I have just a couple comments, they're just my comments. Some things that I found in here that I thought were valuable and that are kind of go in line with things that we've said and done at the Board of Selectmen level, and potentially the new board may take them up, there's the idea of the EDC and the agencies working together to be more of a action-oriented group. We've talked about that, Heather's talked about that, with the role of the commission with Main Street and the chamber, so that's just something that I think is a good piece in here. Also the affordable housing plan that was presented a few years ago by planning, and the push to have an advisory, a housing advisory commission of the experts to kind of help weigh in on housing choices. And I know that Susan has a lot of ideas in her document here, Susan Messina, but I think that a board like a commission group like that has some heft could make some changes in the community. And that is also recommended in here, so those are things that I, depending on who's still here, we could look at with the new board in the goal setting, to consider some of that stuff here. And the same with some of the sustainability features. So what I'm thinking is there's a lot of action steps in here. I kind of printed those out and some task assignments to different boards and commissions. And it would benefit the new board to take a look at some of those as things to incorporate into either their strategic plan or tasks for the next term. And that's pretty much where I landed on this document. I'm not, those are my comments. And
George, what's the POC is 130 pages long, I think. I've looked through, and I usually look for the definition section of most contracts, but just to remind me, what are complete streets?
So should have Tom Roy here to answer that. So yeah, complete streets is the concept of street design that goes outside of the curb, essentially, and into the public realm. So it's not just pavement for cars, it is a design for all users of that public space. Bikes, pedestrians, accessibility issues, landscaping. So it's an idea that we plan beyond just the engineered pavement.
One thing I did notice too, and it kind of goes a little with, that you called to have an annual meeting, annual review with planning commission over, where we are in here, or that's a potential add-on. I thought I read that in here.
I think it's stronger than that, in fact.
Okay. Okay, good.
I think
I can't quote it right now.
The plan recommends, I think, perhaps for the first time, but it recommends an implementation committee.
Right, that's right.
That would draw from the Board of Selectmen, the zoning commission, the planning commission. We'd have to figure out how often you met, but really to monitor progress. And I think that's one of the defects of a plan, is that you do the plan and you put it up and you don't really read it all the time. But if you have a kind of an implementation committee this was assigned to the zoning commission and these items were the planning commission, this was the Board of Selectmen. And if you meet a little bit more quarterly or annually, a little bit more regularly, we can take the temperature of how we are progressing in implementing the plan. And I think this plan recommends that, and that's a very strong recommendation that we should follow through on.
Yeah, I think that's good. I actually just found, it talks about doing an annual assessment.
We certainly should do that.
Yeah, that's what I
but
was referring to.
I think what we were thinking is that the implementation committee would do its work throughout the year, and then we would publish for the community kind of where we are, and we don't do that now, and we really should.
It's good to have that follow through.
Okay.
I know planning, being liaison to planning and attending some of the meetings, and obviously not all the special ones, but they've put a lot of time into it and you have, so thank you for all the work. I guess it was a lot of hours, I know.
Yeah, thank you.
George, this is gonna be a curveball, but I'm coming to the end, so I'm gonna throw as many as I can.
Yeah, as many as you can.
So have you ever heard of a community that through a living, working document, guidance document like this, actually in the document talks about change of leadership in its planning and zoning bodies, and say that 10 years could be a challenge, because you have a document that talks about the cultural, environmental, and community changes that occur, but if you don't actually have the leadership of the planning and zoning evolving and changing, then it's kind of hard to enact some of the internal initiatives in that document. Have you ever seen that at all?
It's not a conventional approach, and so no. And I've been involved in a number at this point in my career. And I've not, typically we talk about community facilities and government facilities and the brick and mortar, but not ever the personnel or that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's a narrative, interesting, right? The document can only tell you to evolve so much, but if you don't have involved thinking at the head of the leadership of those bodies, then you're not gonna evolve.
Thank you. So it sounds like we will pass this along without comment, formal comment, or action, okay? Does that sound like the consensus here? But thank you for coming tonight. Good luck at the hearing tomorrow night. Okay, now we get into the fun financials. We have Amy here. We're here to talk about the year-end financial results. And then we are going to get into the general fund and capital transfers.
It's my second favorite meeting in the year.
Uh-oh. Good.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no.
Zoom in. Well.
Don't worry about cutting off the 22, just make sure it shows the 22.
Nobody can see that anyway, so.
That.
Make it bigger. Sorry.
There you go.
And then just slide it over to the right. You see, now the other way, so you can see 23. There you go, because they have the title. Okay. So then the clicker's probably not gonna work, is it?
Oh, no, yeah.
No, they
upside
can't
down,
scroll down.
Leave it upside down.
Yeah, but I can't scroll down on the page.
But if you hit down, it'll do it.
Yeah, that's the next page though. I went down to the first page. Can I drive?
Yeah.
Thanks. Where's your tools to make it bigger? Alright, there we go. Alright. So starting out with the general fund revenues. You'll see here that our ending budget was $115,452,584. Our actual results at the end of the year was $117,589,988. So we had an excess in budget of about $2.1 million. I won't reread the narrative to you. It breaks out each of the individual account lines and what attributed to it, but there were three major drivers that attributed to this. The first one being our investment income. This is something that we saw a huge excess of when we saw the rising interest rates during the year. So the variance during the year on this line item was about $1.3 million. Moving down onto your line item, if you're following along, is the town manager's budget.
Can we go back up just to the first one, to tax? So what's our budgeted collection rate?
To tax, 98.5%.
So then how are we negative on that if we collected 99.8?
So we had budgeted for the motor vehicle mill rate reimbursement. We had thought that we were gonna get reimbursement based on 29 mills. So we were estimated to budget about $2 million, a little over $2 million. They raised the mill rate to 31.49, I think, and so our reimbursement was only 1.1 million. So that pretty much ate up our collections on the collection rate.
So that's a blended number?
Mm-hmm.
So the 99.8 is not reflective of the budgeted collection rate, it's a different number?
Say that
Because
again?
99.8 is bigger than 99.5, which means on a straight basis, we should have a positive number there, not a negative.
So on the tax collections, we did, but if you offset our grant funding from the motor vehicle, we're in the negative.
Gotcha.
You assume that that's gonna be, I mean, assuming there's no
That's-
other changes to the mill rate, that would be a one-time event.
Right.
Not that kind of event, it's a one-time event.
Gotcha. Okay.
Going down to the town manager's office, this is where we budget our tiered pilot. We had budgeted just shy of $100,000 and we received about $650,000. So this was a change to the state of Connecticut and their municipal revenue sharing fund, not to be confused with their municipal revenue sharing grant. Where we were able to get additional funding this year for that pilot. And then the last main area of revenue was within the Board of Education line item, about $323,000. So we had excess tuition revenue that we haven't seen in prior years. We also had some building rental revenue coming out of COVID. There's more usage of our building rentals, our building use this year that we charge rental for. And then we also had a small state grant for about $20,000 that was unanticipated. Any questions on the main areas of the revenue or any other of the line items? Alright. Moving on to expenditures. What does that do? On the expenditures, You can see that our final budget was about $116,363,000. And then we had actual results of $115,279,547. So we came in excess, or under budget, I should say, a little over $1 million, $1,084,257. So you'll notice here, it's just hidden right off this page, in our contingency line, which just went away. Why isn't it moving at all? Oh, never mind.
It's up a little bit.
Yeah, I just got it. All right, so we have this wage settlement line item of $798,665. So you may recall over the last 3 years, we had the CSEA union contracts that were up for negotiation. It did take about 3 years to settle those contracts, so that money of $798,000 was put aside for when those contracts finally settled. They did settle in fiscal year '23. And out of that $798,000, we only needed about $375,000 of that due to the staff turnover and the staffing changes that happened over the last 3 years. So if you were to reduce our operating surplus by that $375,000, the balance is about $424,000, and our actual savings net to expenditures is about $660,000. There were two main drivers related to this as well. If you go up to the employee benefits section, in here is our health insurance as well as our pension contributions. For the employee salaries and benefits, the health insurance had savings of about $500,000, mostly due to the staff turnover during the year. And then we had about $400,000 related to savings on the annual required contribution for the pension.
Can you go back up and explain that wage settlement again?
Sure.
Because we're taking a charge of $800K.
What do you mean you're taking a charge?
It's an expenditure of $800K, right?
No, so that is something that we put into,
It's a placeholder, wasn't it?
so the actual line you'll see is $0. The budget is $798. This is something that we put in at the end of fiscal year
Oh, I see,
'22
I see,
to
I see,
assign
I see.
fund balance.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right.
But we only spent 300 of it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, about $375,000 is all we needed of it.
Gotcha,
So the remainder goes back into fund balance.
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So then at the bottom here, between our revenues and expenditures, we added about 2.3 into our surplus for fund balance.
Amy, sorry, can you go back up and just narrative just as much as like, for the staff vacancies, just curious, is this gonna come up in next year's budget? I know, so animal control, that's filled, right, chief, right? Yeah. So the rest of them, planning, IT, I'm not to assume that those are one complement each, one FTE or one, or how many of them are actually filled? And what's that 250 reduced down to roughly, would you say?
So I think dollar value, I'm not sure, but as far as positions, we did have a lot open in the prior years. The animal control is filled, our planning department is pretty much full now. I think it's just down to the police department, and they have 3 officers that are not filled. I think
Rick, your IT is filled,
Rick is IT, is
Yeah.
IT is
and
filled.
dispatch is filled, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
3
Library filled.
Yes.
3 officers is more than $200,000, so.
Clearly, the police is driving whatever's left.
Right.
Okay, just, thank you.
Any other questions on the expenditures?
So that could be, I mean, that could be said not to be seen likely next year, not to be repeated, same thing with a contract negotiation issue, not to be repeated.
Likely
I think
not
that
gonna
might
see
be
that set.
repeated as the interest.
Yeah, those are two, but these are two,
Expect to see that
these are
go
two
up.
big narrative drivers that are likely to be repeated.
Any other questions on expenditures? Okay. Why doesn't it just scroll?
Everything else in the packet after that is just a backup for all of the
Yeah.
expenditures.
Mhm.
We're obviously gonna skip that here, go on to the next stuff.
Examine slide 38 of 133.
I mean, I would, but I'm not gonna put you guys
IT
all
general
through
fund
that.
expenditure detail.
Alright, moving on to the Simsbury Farms Fund, we had a slight deficit, net loss of about $10,000 related to this fund. I'll take you through the revenue drivers and the expenditure drivers. There's one outlier where if we had not made this change during the year, we would have been within budget. So on your worksheet, if you look at your revenues, you'll see that we were in excess of budget about $375,000. $194,000 of this is our golf course fees. So we were about almost close to $200,000, $220,000 between this golf surcharge fees and then the golf course fees. So that's been trending up. And then under our special programs, we did have some additional programs that ran in the current year. We were able to increase our revenues there. And then as you go down below, we'll see that we increased our expenditures to offset those programs. So even though we had a surplus of about $375,000 on the revenue side, under our expenditures, you can see that we were to the negative about $467,000. On the golf course, with the increased income, we also had increased expenditures. We had a couple more people add to our health insurance, and then they also had some equipment purchases during the year. Related to the special programs, they saw a deficit of about $78,000. This was due to the increased special programs and day camp revenues. So compared to our budget, it does look like we are in a deficit. However, we had additional revenue to offset those expenditures. And then this main line item, the Simsbury Farms Administration line item, we had increased pension cost based on our actuarial analysis. So typically when our actuaries were doing our pension ARC payments for the year, they were doing the town employees as a whole. And since we had the Simsbury Farms Fund last year, we actually asked them to break out the individuals that are charged to the Simsbury Farms Fund. So we gave them the names of those individuals, they did their own valuation based on those employees, so that now we know how much should be charged to the special revenue fund for those individuals. So that's where that negative $180,000 comes in. Had we not had that, then we would have been right within our projected surplus of about $81,000. Questions on that?
Makes sense.
And then the last fund that we like to keep an eye on, our health insurance fund. You can see all the way at the bottom, we had a deficit of about, or a net loss, if you will, of about $430,000. We had planned for a much larger loss of $1.3 million as we were trying to utilize those reserves to help offset some of the operating budget during the year. But still came out to the good, or better than anticipated, I should say. So our premiums, we had some new hires on the Board of Education side that generated increased premiums by about $200,000. I just wanted to point out on the insurance refunds, it looks really skewed if you look at last year compared to this year. So this year you'll see the $130,000 of insurance refunds, and last year was $509,000. This is our stop loss insurance and where that gets posted. So when we have the claims that hit the stop loss amount, it does vary from year to year. So I just wanted to point out that that's why it's skewed.
So that's actually better,
Yes.
right? Cause it's lower stop loss claims.
Right.
But we don't want a big number there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then under our claims, we were almost $300,000 to the good on our claims, which is amazing because our claims have just been consistently going up over budget. And now we're finally starting to see some of that relief come into our claims. And then the last one is the stop loss insurance itself. We did go out to bid. We go out to bid every year, and we got a break this year with going with a brand new vendor, Granular, and they are trying to get into the market.
So they gave us a very competitive rate, so we were able to have substantial savings in that line item. And then the last thing that we always watch, we need to be at 20 to 25% of expected claims, according to our brokers, and at the end of the fiscal year 23, we're at 29%. So right where we should be, actually a little bit higher. Any questions on that?
So job well done, that's a good, you and the current town manager and the former town manager proactively managed that fund for a number of years, so it's a good spot to get it in.
I don't have anything else formal on the rest of the special revenue funds, but if you have questions, more than.
I have a question about one of the special revenue funds. How did we allow Simsbury Celebrates to overspend by 10K last year and deplete the entire fund balance?
Hold on.
Now they have none. More surprising to me is who's on that committee.
They're excited for the planning going on for this year's.
Oh, they have no cushion this year.
So they have a small fund balance, so I guess it's, if they're starting over, then
Yeah,
they're gonna be able to
had 12
generate
grand.
whatever revenue.
They had 12 grand. They have 1,500 now. And they almost doubled their contractual services.
So I can look into the detail for you.
I mean, they can't afford to do it again, I guess is really my point, because they can't go negative. Right, so whatever.
Well, I guess it depends to what level, because if you look at this year compared to last year, they only spent 16,000 last year and 31,000 this year. So I don't know if that was a special event, a special thing.
That's what I'm trying to understand. I mean, they doubled their contractual services, so what
Yeah.
happened? Because we
I
can't
mean,
have.
I can follow up and look.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we can't have that happen again because they'll go negative by 15. Because donations have been, I mean, they were up a little bit, but donations only covered 25 and we spent 36. So. I would just wanna make sure that no special revenue fund is going in the negative, forces the town to. Because as I'm sure members of that committee know, that they can't expend funds they don't have an appropriation for.
Noted. I will look into that and get back to you. Any other questions?
Lisa's on that.
All right. And if there's no other questions on that, we can move on to the transfers. And what we would like to do with all this. It's also all the same.
It should be. Amy, do we ever, let's say my memory is good, but not that good. Do we ever, measure what percentage of budget the excess is? And is it consistent? Is it a third of a percent?
As far as a percentage, I don't know if it's consistent. As far as a dollar value, we're generally around 2 million.
I always thought it was $2 million, so like 2%, I mean, that would be an interesting, I think, for the future, for the Board of Finance and for the Board of Selectmen, is maybe do a 10-year trend and see each year we come out at all these pictures, I'm a simple man, pictures help, cartoons, that kind of stuff.
I think we did that a couple years ago, didn't we? If there was concern,
I did the dollar value analysis, but
if I remember
we didn't
correctly.
have any fun pictures.
No, but I remember, I mean, we did do the number because there was concern that there was over budgeting going on, and the trend analysis you did showed roughly 2 to 3 million every year.
Right, I don't know if we did like a percentage of budget though.
No, it wasn't, but it was 2, 3, I think the high was 4 once because of abnormal staffing turnover, if I recall. That was an extraordinary year where there was just a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
If anything, the percentage is shrinking, right? Because we're staying consistent around the low 2s to mid 2s, right?
Yeah, and I can break out too, I think when I did that analysis, I broke off the one-offs of things like the 798,000 compared to what our actual operating was, so
It'll also be interesting, I think, in economics, it's an economist study, 5 years down the road, is there a lag on that we are in unprecedented economic times. And does that collection rate actually ever move? We've had this historic budget number that we budget to that is seemingly we've always come in above. And is there a lag, and is at some point that actually changes that number?
Well, I would just go one step further. I mean, again, this is no criticism whatsoever, but there's new territory here. I'm not sure I recall where we've had deficits like we've seen within the Board of Ed space, and to no fault of their own, there's a ton of pressure in the special education spaces, right, as we can see here.
Yep.
That's not the Board of Ed's fault, they can't control that, right? But if that's gonna continue to be the norm, is that 2 mil enough to cover those sorts of, challenges in the future with our expectation that we use some of this money for capital, right? It's our rainy day capital fund.
Right.
And again, no fault of the Board of Ed whatsoever, but if that's the environment that we're in, does 5 become 7, 7 becomes 1 million
Yeah.
because of those pressures?
We're actually starting to do a full analysis on that now for special ed, and since that doesn't seem to be a downward trend, it just seems the losses are kind of shifting from, the tuition to the transportation or an increase in tuition costs. And Matthew actually just went to a superintendent's meeting on Friday, and they are all having some of the same challenges.
Yeah, the costs aren't going down, right? And, as a community, that's our obligation as well on the Board of Selectmen side to help the Board of Ed with that. We're all part of the same team, so. Sorry, I'll get to
Alright. Alright, so just a breakdown of our fund balance, where we started the year on 7/1, about 19,390,000. And then if you go here to this 2.3 million, that was our revenues minus our expenditures. And so now we have a new fund balance at the end of fiscal year 23 of about $21,700,000. If you go down to the breakdown of the fund balance, just a correction here, this is not fiscal year 24, this is fiscal year 23, so I'm just gonna hide that. So you'll see that our non-spendable fund balance is about 137,000. This is all of our prepaid invoices during the year. We have a signed fund balance of 68,000, which is our encumbrances, and then the remaining is our unassigned fund balance of 21,494,000.
It's a huge number.
Yes.
That's big.
So our assigned fund balance right now is about 18.65% of fiscal year 23 expenditures, so well in excess of our policy and well in line with the credit rating agency. So what do we want to do with this money? So you'll see that there was a list from the department heads that went forward. These items here were picked out by the town manager to move forward for your consideration. We have, and Rick is here to back me up on this one, we have the managed network detection and response. This was a next priority for our cyber insurance carriers. The first priority was the endpoint solution, which was implemented. And our cyber insurance has been very difficult to obtain over the last few years. There's some places that won't even quote us because we don't have certain things in place. There's certain places that want to see more. There's certain places where we're in line, but then we have to commit to doing certain things in a certain time frame. The cost has increased dramatically. So to try to get ahead or maybe even stay consistent with that, this was one of the priorities being brought forward. Moving on to the network switches, this is something that was approved as part of the fiscal year 24 budget of about 42,000. The pricing came in at 78,000 for some additional licensing requirements that were needed, and so excess supplemental appropriation about 37,000 needed there. Similar trend with the PAC life safety analysis. This is something that was approved in prior years for about $15,000 to get a solid number on the capacity for attendance at the PAC. The RFP was issued in May of this year, and again, we had short funded as the quote came in about $41,000, so an extra $35,000 needed to go.
I gotta ask, we're gonna pay 40 grand for them to tell us how many people can go to the PAC? I mean, it's just.
Well, you guys tell me.
Yeah, we're gonna, well, I was gonna let you, Amy,
Sorry,
let
that one
Amy
just kills
finish
me.
and then we can kind of discuss the items.
Alright, I'll stop.
I got it on my list too.
And Tom has some additional information on that particular issue.
I will
I
forward
sent that, oh, yeah, I sent it.
And then the last one, the compensation and classification study analysis, to do all of the current job description classifications and existing pay grades, and about $75,000 for that. And then to get our fund balance down to about 15.5%, which is typically 15.5% to 16% is typically where the Board of Finance likes to see their general fund balance, which has been the practice over the last couple of years, the amount that we've transferred. This leaves us about 3.3 million that we can transfer out of the general fund into the capital reserve fund and be at about 15.5% of expenditures, sorry. Any questions on those?
Yeah, I think we wanna
Yep.
have some
Yeah.
discussion on the items. Do you wanna start since you already brought up the PAC Live study? Cause I had questions on that too.
If we go to the top, just do it in order.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
Sure.
right there.
So is
Rick?
Yes, sir.
we've been talking about that for
You're at the
years,
top,
right, as
right?
part of the,
Yeah, so
as part of the
really,
tech task force, right?
what drove this, yeah, so what drove this thing is pretty much insurance coverage, like in that too. We pretty much, with the auditors and the insurance companies and what they want for the policy, we pretty much knocked off what we had to do to this point. So this is pretty much the last mile, is this piece of it that's sitting out there, which we get a bad mark for. We also got a mark, we had an audit that was done by the state, the cyber team, that came in, I think it was in February, and they gave us a mark for this as well. And this is just, I mean, our security posture is layered, so it's not just one thing. So if you start at the desktop, it's, you know, a desktop layer, something that sits on your network, and then it goes through your external appliances that are out there for security purposes. This fits into that model. A lot of towns go to it. We've partnered where I got this number from, and this is hopefully a number that stays if it's accepted this evening, is a good number. But what this does future, and I think I talked about this for our budget, is subscription wise, we're getting hammered. IT's getting hammered. So yearly thing, we buy this thing, we're gonna have yearly subscriptions coming in. That's something that for our budget season coming up, it's gonna be a real important thing. Do we need this? Yes, 100%. It's a recommendation, and I do think wholeheartely that we should do it.
There's no way to avoid the subscriptions, that's the way these
The
companies are
13K.
making money.
Yeah.
And they're gonna go up, not down, right?
I have a question for you, Rick. So I just, in the capital non-recurring funds, we still have a cybersecurity audit sitting out there that we haven't done as an uncommitted, is there, I just was tying this to this a little bit, and I was wondering why that hasn't happened.
Yeah, and I think it's several years out, right?
23 was a,
28 maybe?
I think we moved it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
it got
looking
pushed.
in the project list.
Yeah, it got pushed out. I think it's
Why
28,
is it
27.
still here?
We moved
But I mean, do we wait? You're in that position. Like I said, it's my recommendation that we move on it. We can't wait for a cyber audit. We've already had one audit by the state. State's coming out, their cybersecurity task force are coming out with other audits that we can do for a lot less than what's being projected in 28. But this fits our security layer posture that's out there. But it's costly, all this
This has
stuff
become the new minimum
is costly.
standard.
Did you say that this is being held against us in our insurance premiums?
Yeah,
Not
there's,
having this?
yeah, so they
Is there a
come out
cost you
with,
can offset it by? I mean, can you give us something that's actually 15 grand, not 18 grand? Because
No, we'll get to keep our insurance is the game.
Well, my point, I mean,
Yeah.
if
We're gonna lose our
we're
insurance
spend,
at some point because
okay,
of
but
this.
if we're spending more because we don't have this,
We might
is
save a
that
few
fair?
bucks. And I get, maybe Chris, but this is
Yeah.
becoming the minimum.
I mean, there are some carriers that won't even quote us.
Yeah.
Cause we don't have it.
That's part of the challenge here.
so like when we went out to get quotes for this, so you gotta think this is almost a year out, right? So has it changed? Probably. So what I have to do, as part of my job, right, is I go out there, petition them again, say, hey, can you do it, right? I can't tell them exactly what I have, but it's like, can you do this for this budget year? And then that reoccurring operating expense happens next year.
Okay, so you're the expert in the room and you're highly recommending we do this.
Now, that's the question.
That's
I mean,
Fund
if
it now.
it fits, if it fits what the board, you know,
No, you tell, the money's there.
I would take it.
Thank you.
My only question on this was, because we're adding 13.8 to our operating, right? Is that something that would be better discussed at the budget? Is it, is that timing going to make a difference?
I think for when I speak with Amy and with you folks, that 13%, I guarantee my contractual services with all the subscriptions that we're having and the uptick in what they're charging is gonna be more than that 13%.
13,000, the 13K?
Yeah.
Okay. So then at the budget, you're gonna probably, are you gonna add, is this locking us in at the 13.8 or is it gonna go up when you come?
It's gonna be in that area. It's not a concrete number, I'm being 100% honest with you. It's gonna be in there somewhere, 2 or 3, you know,
That's
plus or
to get
minus.
us right now, but
What's that?
when that's to get us there right now, but when we renew it, it's probably gonna be higher.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying, right?
And you usually see that these companies will 5, 6, 7% increases per year.
You're stuck. I mean, they all raise the price, so
And this is that whole cybersecurity piece that everybody's getting hit on. So we're not just a lone municipality here for this.
So we're hearing you're saying that you'll enter the contract as soon as this funding is available to you, and we're not, like, if we fund it now instead of at the budget, you're gonna get a head start on it by doing it now, is what you're telling us.
'Cause I do
We
have
won't
the-
wait a few months for it.
No, I'll have the vendor file already and I could move forward on that. But I have to wait for a specific date before I could use the money.
Right, no, I know that, okay.
And the other thing to consider is that once we have this additional layer of security in place, we may find ourselves with more insurance companies bidding because we have this. We may have a more competitive bidding climate because we now have this in place.
right, you might save a couple of grand. Municipalities are a terrible risk.
But you're our technology task force liaison, you would think that it's a critical need right now?
I think it is. I mean,
Okay.
this is not a new item. This has been on the list and it's gone from we really should have it to now we have to have it.
Okay, let's move on to network switches. Are you network switches also?
Unfortunately, yes. Stand and deliver.
These are another item we have to do. The
Yeah,
cost just
well-
went up, right?
Yeah,
And
so.
we just bid on it, we approved it last budget.
I'll give you just the insight on that. The 42,000 was the number that we came up with back then, which was probably forecasted out 15 months to 12 months out. And what had happened with the vendor that is our proprietary vendor per se, is they started tacking on subscription prices. So there to buy the equipment is you have to have a 3-year subscription license for it. Whether you carry it after that, it's up to the municipality, but it's the 3-year contract that you're in. So that upfront, if the equipment's costing $5,000, we're probably not 100%, but probably paying close to $4,000 in subscription for that one piece of equipment. So it's almost a 100% hit.
So the 78,000, that includes if that's a 3-year, there's a 3-year
Yeah.
subscription in that?
Yep. So then after that, so it doesn't hit our operating expense, Heather, for 3 years, but then that, yeah,
And it becomes another new line then?
it's a discussion, right?
We probably have to buy them again, right? Cause they don't.
The life of how we use it here, will run us 5 to 7 years that we have.
Somebody write that down.
And we're down to how many spare switches at this point?
One.
Okay.
So we gotta do it.
Okay, let's move to pack life. That's a
Here's
good
one we don't have to do.
Yeah. I agree. Do you wanna, did you wanna talk about it,
so
Tom?
I called Missy at the PAC, she kind of gave me some more info on it. It is to study egress and ingress, as well as the total amount of people that can be in the facility.
It's a big field.
And it's so
Ingress and egress it's a big field. You walk out, right?
I don't totally know that part, but they've never actually done a, the 10,000 number that they've had around has just been kind of pulled out of a hat. They've never done an actual, this is the full capacity including vendors. I imagine it includes
time of egress in case of an emergency, so you might have 10,000, but you might have to have certain size exits. And then the fire marshal I called as well, it is part of the state fire code that we're supposed to have one. We do not have one,
Have one what? The study?
the study, and it
Where did that
provides.
come from? That's new.
It provides some report, I forget the exact name, I'm sorry about that, but it is, that report is part of state fire code, which
So now it's required.
it has been required.
So what does that mean? So it has been required, but he hasn't required us to
Because we're
require
just
it.
not up to code.
Now they just know we're not compliant.
So I
I mean, the fire marshal signs
It
up on the
actually
public
becomes
hazard
part of
plans.
our emergency management plan, it's an annex to our emergency management plan. And we currently do not have that annex, so it's one of the deliverables from this analysis, is we'll have that chapter, if you will, of our emergency management plan.
So let me just get this straight. They're gonna tell us how many people we can have down there. And that we need a fire truck to drive over the fence to get more people out of there if there's an emergency. Right? I mean, cause that's, I mean, I'm not being flippant, but I mean,
Don't know.
that fence can be taken down pretty easily. It's a big field.
I hear your skepticism, Sean. We're also living in a time when large events can be the targets of bad actors.
That's not what this is gonna
That's what
tell
I'm,
us
that's
though.
what I'm asking.
That's not gonna tell us this.
Okay,
Well,
let's
does
go,
it-
let's go, hey, there's three insurance nerds up here. You still in insurance, Eric?
I am.
Yeah, okay, so, that's Sean, myself and Eric. So let's take it to liability. So if I hear you correctly, state code requires us to know what this is for our emergency preparedness and for our life. So an insurance company could deny a liability claim because we are out of compliant, because we falsely or incorrectly represented that number on an ACORD document, Sean, that is issued for whatever events it's because we carry the insurance on some of these events and the PAC carries on the outside events, right?
Well, that's the question, is who bears this cost?
So-
Because we're not putting on the events.
I hate to bring it down to that, but are we creating a liability for ourselves if we don't have this and the state says we're supposed to? And our fire marshal is potentially issuing permits that
That's what I'm, so again, that's what I'm trying to understand, is the fire marshal says it's required, but he's signing off on public hazard permits.
So let's
So
put the fire marshal aside. If he's I'm not saying he's making an error. If it sounds like we are knowingly out of compliance with something.
Let's
I
be
hate to
careful
bring
with
it
the we, right? We do not put these events on. We cede the liability and the event running to the PAC. The town of Simsbury does not put the 10,000 person event on.
correct, we own that property.
Correct. I mean,
Okay,
I'm not saying
so
we're
when
absolved of
I
liability.
can tell you though, when travelers default,
Oh, I know,
denies
no, I know.
denies the policy paying, who's getting sued for the
The
event?
town of Simsbury. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I just would like to ask a couple questions and make some comments on this. First of all, we approved this in 2021 with year-end savings, so it's 2 years later. And we just got the RFQ done, right, in May.
Yep.
So now we have a valid figure. Originally, we approved it for $15,000 because it was $15,000 and we were told it was needed. Now it's $41,000. So I'm not sure I'd make that same decision right now unless the case was made for that. And then you mentioned that the PAC still needs it, but I'm not sure that it's urgent to do it with these funds and that it can't wait till the budget.
So on that, the analysis is done through a peak season. So getting it in through the year end or through these the transfers allows us to start the analysis starting in May or June, whenever their peak season starts, and runs through the summer. Whereas if you go through the budget, then that won't come effective until July. So then
This time of the year.
you'll do it the summer of 25, 6. Did I get that right?
So are we off the
But
hook because
what-
we're doing the analysis?
That I'm unsure of.
Why did we, go ahead, you're gonna ask what I asked.
Why didn't, if it was
Yeah.
needed in 21, why was it put off?
I don't.
I don't think there's anyone here with that history.
So,
Again, we could chalk it up to a body of well-intentioned volunteers running an organization. But the 15,000 that Wendy pointed out, was that an estimate or was there actually a firm commitment from an organization to do the study for 15
No, it was
grand.
15, it was an
An
estimate.
estimate put forth by the PAC.
Allocated.
It was October 21, so I wasn't involved, but it was a year-end transfer request, so I imagine it was a kind of looking at the kind of field at the time. It was never like an RFQ wasn't issued until after. So I don't know how that exact number was.
We only got one response.
And
to the
when we
RFP.
issued the RFQ, we got one response, correct?
Okay, so then is the tone been, because we appropriated the 15 grand, is that, would you say anecdotally, is that why they're coming back to us versus them covering this out of their own operating budget, or they just don't have the money in their operating budget?
I don't think the
I don't
PAC
think
was
it's been
ever gonna pay for this.
No.
Okay, so I'm saying the tenor was already set by the fact that we approved 15 grand, so now we're here with 25,000 more, 26,000 more of an ask.
The other thing that I thought part of this was stemmed after the Darius Rucker concert with the 10,000, and I could be wrong, but that was my thinking, is there was a lot of questions of safety after that concert, and there were a few meetings that went on, and I think that was what made that a priority at the time. I think the PAC has changed some of how they do that. They've had a self-managed smaller event this year and got away from doing something of that size. So I'm not sure, again, if I were brought this today, that I would approve it. So
I think we're hearing that,
we're saying, we don't know with the state, do we, for sure?
so
Are
we're
we
being
fine?
told that the fire marshal is mandating this, right?
No, I don't think he used the word mandate. He just said it's a part of fire code.
So do we get to ignore the fire code, or do we choose when we wanna follow it? I'm really struggling with that. Like, is this
No, that's a great
nice to
question.
have?
Because most businesses around town can't do anything without the fire marshal saying my code, you bet my code, so.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, are we shirking our responsibility that everyone else has to follow? Like, that doesn't feel right. Like, if everyone is subject to this, we should play by the same rules, right?
Yep.
Guess I'm trying to, I mean, if this is a mandate, then we fund it. If this is a strongly worded suggestion that we can continue to think about, then we move it to the
I
budget.
think we,
I did not talk with the fire marshal, but Tom did, and I'd say it's something we have to do. Sooner we do it,
Okay.
the
Then
better.
we'll send it on, and if for some reason that changes before it gets to the board of finance, they can change the appropriation, right?
so are we ready to start this now? Like it's sad that there was only one person who responded.
Yeah, they did,
Yes,
and
that
There's
happens.
not a lot of companies that do
interviewed
that.
staff, like the staff interviewed them, kind of vetted the firm in their normal RFQ process. And then the quote was realized that they, not afterwards, but then we realized we need to come back and ask for some more funding for it.
But they could make recommendations that are gonna cost us money, that's gonna cost the PAC money.
Oh yeah, this is
like
the
that,
study.
And then we're gonna be,
Cost who money?
cost us money,
The PAC money?
the PAC money?
There you go.
Oh, the PAC money. Okay, so
This is the study,
are
yeah,
they gonna
this isn't-
follow up with the response? Yeah, I guess that's another question, is the PAC gonna be able to follow up to provide the response that this consultant brings to the table?
We don't know.
So it could be for nothing, but I guess if we're saying that, Lee's saying, you're saying that we're being told that we strongly should do it, otherwise I would.
So we're spiraling out here. So this study, the narrative is just to tell us how many people we can and can't have in that venue. Is that
No,
what it
that's
is?
part of it. It does the emergency management plan like Lee said, so for so I was told it does like proper point and having the exact amount of points of egress and ingress. I imagine it looks at the size of them to kind of help control flow as well, depending on how many people are allowed in the facility. Patrick mentioned that it'll also allow different, they'll go over different setups of the event, so depending on different setups you have, would determine how many people you can have. So if you have a bigger kind of structures brought in, then it would limit the amount of people.
Okay, yeah, so
you
it's
can
clearly
bring.
spiraling out to this is going to increase the costs, absolutely. It's gonna tell you that the rock wall's gotta come down, the gates aren't large enough, we don't have permanent, power, whatever it is, that's what's
road's
likely gonna
gridlock.
happen. So this is going to spiral out to be something more. It's not simply
No, but
just don't hold an event with more than 8,800 people. don't totally know that one.
Okay.
But I can follow, I
So
can
if
follow.
there's work done to the, if they put the bathrooms in, they do different things, then does it require a new analysis, or is it?
Yeah, that's a good question, Heather.
Probably.
So I think.
That's a great.
And not to, so I'd like to get more clarity, so
It's gonna change the years.
So let's
it'd be
bring it
good
to
to
the
know,
budget.
Tom, if having this
The
study
answers to
done,
as much as
does
we
having
want.
this study done put us in compliance? Or does it, do we have to act on the study to be in compliance? Those are two separate
That's a
things,
good question.
okay?
Good question.
I say it's both. We'll be in compliance with having an emergency management plan. But we won't be in compliance if there are substantial dollars that need to be spent to implement the recommendations. Then, until those funds are found, we won't be in compliance with that. We can certainly let the consultant know that we have a phase 2 planned for expansion of the facility when we get the funding for it, and they can give us their recommendations based on not only what's there now, but what is anticipated to be there at some point in the future, once that phase 2 is fully funded.
When's the Board of Finance
Yeah,
taking
that's
this
what I
up?
was, good idea.
November.
Why don't we
Yeah, their
table
next
something?
regular meeting in November.
So is that after our meeting? Before it?
Your next meeting.
Yeah.
Ours is on the 13th.
Yeah, theirs is the 17th.
Yeah.
I think it's the,
Tuesday, so I think your meeting is after, I think.
oh,
We'd want the answers same as you,
say that again?
we'd want the answers to the same question.
I know,
what I'm
that's what I'm
trying to-
saying, I was gonna push it off to the.
Well, what I'm trying
Like, we
to
could've-
decide is, do we send it
Yeah,
No.
with the requirement that what's that?
that's probably the 14th.
So it'll be right after. So we can table this until then.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can bring it back to your next meeting with more information.
So we can probably send everything else, but we might wanna just table this one until we have
I'm
the
not
answers.
really ready to vote for this, to be honest
We'll
with
try
you.
to have a representative of the PAC here and maybe the fire marshal.
Yeah, that
Can
would be
give you
helpful,
more,
just to
give you more
clarify.
detail on the need for this.
That's right, cause I mean, Bert's right, they're gonna want the same answers we want to do this.
I would, so then, just to help those folks out, whoever you ask, I'd tell them to watch this segment, because the questions are gonna be the same questions.
Yeah, is it required, is it strongly suggested, what happens when we change the facility, right? Are we required to make the changes, who's required to make the changes, you know, all those sorts of things.
So we would not include it tonight.
Yeah, we'll just take it out
Okay.
tonight.
Who's performing this study? What kind of expertise does one need?
Is a, it's been a couple months since I looked at the firm name, but it is a firm that studies all sorts of large scale event spaces, arenas across the country and if not the world.
That'd be good.
And so the study it spans over the course of several months, is that?
Yeah, they analyze kind of the pack season. So then they can kind of see the flow and kind of, they'll get an average population kind of attendance, I imagine, and then. They need to attend a series of out of compliant
They need to attend them to view and all
That
that.
doesn't, it starts.
Do they get comped for these or
Can we charging a ticket?
We could reduce it.
Okay, so the compensation, we move on.
Yes, let's move on.
Haven't we done
Yes.
this in the past?
No, they've wanted to do it in the past, we've not
Yeah,
been
I
able
don't
to.
know that
comp?
it's
We've talked about it for
ever
years.
been done in the past.
Okay, that's why
And
it's.
it has not, it certainly has not been done in the way that we are recommending it be done at the present time. And this is an initiative of the town manager's office. And we're suggesting that we do a total compensation and classification study. So we'll look not only at salaries and wages, but we'll look at the benefit levels that we pay in comparison with our comparison group of communities. Are we, do we do better, do we do less, et cetera, both in wages and in total compensation and benefits. There'll be a complete review of all of the current job descriptions and essentially an update of all of the job descriptions. I think I mentioned previously, we have job descriptions that go back to 1989. And we have all kinds of different formats for those job descriptions, so we'll bring them up all to the current standard of what a job description should include. The study will be managed by the town manager's office. Specifically, we'll have our acting deputy town manager and our human resources coordinator managing the day-to-day aspects of the study and periodic reports to the town manager. And we will certainly want to include in an appropriate manner, as the personnel subcommittee would like to be involved in the process, so there won't be any surprises when we have a final report that comes out. It can either come to the Board of Selectmen and be referred to the personnel subcommittee for review and comment back to the board, or it can go directly to the personnel subcommittee, however the board would like to handle it. There will be a series of recommendations, I'm sure, for changes to the present plan. We are hoping that we can get the RFP out quickly enough. We have a draft of it already so that we can get responses quickly and get the study initiated and completed in time so that it can be considered. The recommendations in it can be considered not only for the 24-25 budget, but also for the 24-25 negotiations that will be coming up with the police union and
All three CSEA.
unions.
Right.
So we think it will be a very valuable product for use not only this coming year, but for years to come. So we do strongly recommend it. I guess a study like this has been recommended in the past by the town manager's office, but it was just a salary study. It was not a study that would include employee benefits. So we think by including employee benefits, we'll get the whole picture of what the compensation level is and how we compare with our comparison communities, and can think long-term about the changes that we may need to make as a result of the analysis.
Question on this? Every other item on there we see has gone up in cost. I was just wondering how confident you are in the 75,000 being inclusive of the scope that you
Yes,
described.
I'm very confident. We've talked to two firms that do these types of studies around the country. One of them actually being GovHR USA, who we just used to do the recruitment for our new town manager. They do this kind of work as well. And so we're very confident that $75,000 will cover the cost.
But I know this is a hot button for Maria. She was pushing this for years, especially the job classification and the compensation. Any estimate as far as how long, what's the shelf life for these? I mean, we got nothing.
That's an excellent question. The expectation is that
these came through in parallel, unprecedented,
yes, the expectation is that the consultant will recommend and use an evaluation system for judging the value of individual jobs that we can maintain ourselves going forward.
Okay.
And then we routinely do salary surveys to check how we're doing against the market. So I would think that we would not need a study like this for quite a while going forward. That's my estimation.
So, I don't know, I had a couple items I wanted to ask questions about just in the,
Other items that
yeah,
are on
just
the
only,
list.
so my
Certainly.
my focus was only on pretty much public safety. And there were just two items I saw in here that rose to that level. Well, one was the crossing guard equipment improvements, which was a very small amount of money, which would provide a lot of safety to our crossing guards who are out there in the dark hours of the morning sometimes. And I just thought that was something to consider. And then I did wanna ask about the roadside cameras. I was actually trying to see if this could flip for the PAC study as a more important safety study. And get some more information on that as to why it says it's a 2-year pilot. What would that bring to us now versus waiting to have this be the top priority in the CNR budget? Like, why would we, I know Lee, you didn't recommend it, but I see the chiefs here and I don't know if
Yeah, no, the
Jenna,
chief-
if they
the
wanna
chief and
weigh
the-
in and if anybody's interested in hearing more about
The chair of
that,
the
but.
police commission are here specifically to answer those questions and any others that board members have on those items. I did not recommend them because I felt that they were not critical items.
Okay.
And they could be delayed until the next budget. I got a clear indication from the Board of Finance that they would only consider items that we recommended that we felt were critical, so.
Liabilities.
Yeah, and so these other items, although yes, they should be done at some point, I didn't feel were critical to be done right now.
Okay.
But
I just
certainly,
see if
if
there's
you
anyone on the
feel
board
otherwise, you
interested
can.
in looking at those or not.
I mean, what are we looking for with license plate readers? Outstanding warrants, expired tags, I mean,
So I'll give you a real quick synopsis of these. There are 2 cameras set at each location, and they're really designed for two specific functions. The first is to make instant notification to the police department, and that varies among a bunch of different things, and I'll explain that in a second. And the second is for us to be able to use the data of cars going through there to help with investigations. So to make the instant notifications to us, yes, it does look at, not unregistered vehicles, but it looks at vehicles that are associated with a missing person, an endangered person. Example being somebody gets into their car, they maybe have onset Alzheimer's, they haven't returned home, we're looking for them. That plate can be entered into the system and we can search that system for that car. They're not live stream cameras, as like watching the cameras on Route 84. They're not like that at all. We can only search a database, and we can search based on a plate, based on a vehicle description, based on a model make of a car, a red pickup truck with a bumper sticker on the back, things like that we can search for, and that data is held for only 30 days.
but help me out with that, so we have an Amber Alert.
Yes.
You have to go in and sit there and look at the database to see if that car drove by?
So if there's an Amber Alert, it will pop up.
It will flag it, so it is live in that sense.
It will make a notification to the police department.
Okay.
That Amber Alert vehicle just went through.
Okay, so
and
that part is live, okay.
Yes, that part is definitely live. It's you can set it up by email, text message, anything, but it's right away if something passes through.
That makes sense, okay.
And then, so it's just not for missing persons and wanted persons. You can enter information in there to flag.
Chris?
So
Yes.
so if we have vehicles known to be involved in criminal activity, we can have that notify us. So for instance, our intelligence from Hartford, from Waterbury, from wherever it may be, they can enter information in saying, we know this vehicle is involved in this, we're looking for this, there may not be any warrants for it. It will pop up for us and we can then flood that area and make sure that things aren't happening. Along those lines, a vehicle that's been reported as stolen. So it gets stolen in another town, we know that the 31 vehicles so far this year that have been stolen in our town, cars are being left here that are stolen. So those stolen cars are entering our community. This LPR will make an instant notification to us, say 185 at Route 10, a stolen vehicle just entered, it's 2 AM, our officers will know, they're gonna go to that area. One, try to apprehend the vehicle because it's a stolen vehicle. or two, try to flush them out and prevent more cars being broken into. So 31 this year alone stolen, 75 reported to us about people going into vehicles and rummaging through. So then the other aspect is our investigative efforts. So somebody reports that their vehicle was stolen. Sometime happened over the last 8 hours. We go into the camera system and we put in the vehicle, a registration. And if that passed through any one of our camera locations, it's going to show us. We're gonna be able to see that. Also, it connects with a network of 20 plus other agencies in Connecticut that are using this same vendor. So not only are we able to say it left our town at this hour, but we also know that it went through West Hartford. And then it went down to Cheshire, and then it went over here. So the amount of investigative time in trying to find this vehicle, the savings of time is incredible. And us pinpointing when this happened, because there are other cameras out there that are not roadside cameras that will be able to help us. If we know that it left at 3 AM and it went towards Avon, and Avon has cameras, we can then check what time did it go through Avon. Well, then it went to Farmington. We know Farmington has cameras. Then it went to Plainville. Plainville doesn't have cameras, but now we know where it went in the area, and we can start, Plainville can start helping us look for where that vehicle would be in there with their other cameras, with their private cameras that people contribute to networks. So it really is a great tool for all of those things. It has become basically a standard. This vendor, not in particular, this vendor is now has 20 plus municipalities in Connecticut, but there are different vendors out there. And right now what we do is we will call. We will call West Hartford, we'll say, can you run this plate, can you run this vehicle? In case it came through your town, because we know it left ours. But now we're gonna contribute not only to helping our cases, but to the regions and even further out.
Any restrictions on what intersections we can put it on? Does it have to be town roads or can we put it on state intersections as well?
So if it's within the state right of way, we would have to get a permit for that, which is.
So we can't put it at 185 and 10 very easily?
It would be easy.
It would be.
Yeah, because all the other municipalities are doing those on their major roads, because that's the way people are coming in and out of every community is usually through those major
So this
roads.
cost is what's the cost get at?
So it's a lease. It's a lease per camera, and it's $3,000 per camera per year. And for one particular location, you need 2 cameras. One for traffic this way, one for traffic this way. So basically $6,000 a year per location. And then they also have a $650 one-time installation.
So it's.
It's like an advertisement.
Why doesn't it have why doesn't it have a 99 at the end of it? That's for the cost, okay? So this will be this will be $6,000 per, so this is an ongoing, so we're loading the budget for this, and then we're gonna be, this is going to be an increase to your budget going forward each year, right?
If we decide to keep it, yes. And this proposal here is for 2 years. And so.
Which is why it's 40, okay.
Yeah, which is why it's almost 40. It's for 2 years. And then, if we find that this is successful, which other communities are finding, and I know that they are picking up more and more cameras, so I think it's safe to say,
So
yes, we will be looking
everything you sound says fantastic, right? Who am I? Are these going to be, can you tap into these for other purposes as well? I mean, so it would seem like cameras are the way, I mean, our country is well behind in CCTV versus other countries, right? So, but are we gonna end up with sort of like camera pollution, like we've got sign pollution now in some of our roads? I mean, or can you use it for other things?
So you probably don't even know the ones that are around us now.
Oh, I do.
Well, you may. The rest of the board may not know.
About that.
The locations of ones,
It's the white cameras with dome on them, right?
Okay, but I mean, I'm curious,
So no,
honestly, can you do you see us being, the vendor saying we can tap into these for other purposes as well, more than just that?
No, right now they're for that alone.
Right,
So
that's not a
they're,
definitive.
so they're not for speed enforcement or traffic enforcement, they're not for any other purpose. And there is a 30-day retention on that video. So we can only go back 30 days, otherwise
It deletes and recycles.
it deletes and recycles. If we find something, so it was a vehicle that was involved in criminal activity here, we find that vehicle, we can save that. that data. That will not be gone, after we find it and then save it. But just, we can't say, oh, what happened a month and a half ago, we won't have access to.
Do we have to buy him 6 more switches for this?
No.
So
Uh-oh.
actually,
It's
cloud-based and
that's
doesn't even affect.
Even better, okay.
And have your peer, of course you're gonna say yes, your peer leaders say that this is an absolute game changer for them and it results in savings in their budgets?
I can't tell you if it results in savings in their budgets. I can tell you that.
You said it's in man hours to do the research,
Yes.
right?
We
That's
still
a
gotta pay the
savings.
police.
But those aren't usually overtime hours. So this will not replace a person, but it will replace the 4, 5, 6 hours of phone calls that, every stolen vehicle is a minimum of 40 hours of work. So this will eliminate a lot of that instead of.
That's a cost
You
savings.
know what's even cheaper though, is that people
It
stop
is.
leaving their keys in their car.
Oh, you like
That one, yeah. So I would not consider it necessarily a cost
Trying to help.
save. I know you are, I appreciate that. But we still have that body. It will speed up our investigative work. And the first time that a car comes through with a person who has been endangered, or they're missing, it's gonna pay.
There's no
Yeah.
pressure on that one, yeah.
That's my opinion on this one, is that I would 100% do it. I'm wondering though if it would be best to save this for the budget, since this will be adding costs in perpetuity.
That's what I'm,
Oh, I mean, we just had the same discussion about managed network detection.
yeah, but that's a different, the network detection, that's something that we're basically out of. Rick's saying that's a risk that we're putting ourselves at not having.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, so I'm 100% for this, but again, I think that there is a narrative here, is this something that's a budget item, because it's something you're going to ask for, and it's a narrative and dialogue that is going to be considered as part of the Board of Finance, their concerns. This is an ongoing increase to budget. So does it belong in there just from the conversation perspective of how we approach these types of events?
So if you're asking me, I would say that technology often changes so quickly. This particular technology has been around for a little bit. We are a little bit behind on this. So signing up for a 2-year commitment on this, we may see a big change come 2 years. And I would say that it's not gonna cost us any less, but we may have different technology at that point. It may be used for other purposes. So, we're obviously not committed to it, but I really think that, we had 12 cars stolen last year in 2022. We're at 31 this year, and then I think it was 39, 41, something like that the year before.
Well, I'll stop.
So we're bouncing around.
I'll stop with this question, it just is for the board members, it's just, correct me if I'm wrong, but generally, when we consider these types of transfers and expenditures, they're seemingly one-time events, or they're completion events. They're not
ongoing.
They're not promises, they're not budgetary promises. I'm 100%, you sold me on the need for it, but I'm just, Sean, is that a fair assessment that we generally don't make year-end transfers for ongoing capital?
I mean, we haven't, no. I mean, we usually do studies and we usually do fixed capital items, but I mean, if we don't wanna do this again in 2 years from budgetary pressure, they come take the cameras, right, and we're out of it.
Correct.
Like, it's not like it's downstairs and we can't give it back.
That's correct.
Like, they come, so we're not,
Their property.
yeah, so we're not fully committed.
No, but
We
I'm
don't
thinking
see
about
the
our
value.
Board of Finance member here, and the things that, I'm not being
No, I-
combative, I'm just trying to say that
understand
usually
what
we
you're
do
saying,
these
yes.
for completion purposes, and is that the vein of these conversations, is it easier for them to conceptually get behind why we did it, or are asking for it, versus something that's an ongoing budget?
I think that's fair, Chris. I guess my response is slice in the middle, is that we can choose to continue to invest in this as a capital appropriation, because it's not a fixed piece of property downstairs that we can't give back. And we can decide whether this is a service level we wanna maintain or not. And if there's a budgetary need in 2 years to cut back on services, then this may have to go. And I think if everybody understands that that's on the table, I think we should send it forward. If we're not comfortable with that discussion, then to your point, we wait for the budget.
Can I,
Yeah.
A quick question.
Yeah.
If we did it now and then we look at it again in the budget, like is the cost gonna go up? So like is that a risk? Cause we always talk about the spend to save, like if it's
So what I-
cheaper now, would it be $50,000 in July, next March?
It definitely could go up because the first time that it was proposed by us, it was a bit cheaper. It was $2,500 per, and then we weren't able to move forward with it, so now it's $3,000. So it very well could go up. To add, and I would 100% agree, it's not critical. But I would add to the urgency of doing it now because, as mentioned earlier, we have 3 police officer vacancies right now. We have an additional one in the academy. We're going through trying to figure out what are our staffing movements going to be right now because we need more out on patrol. So we were able to, for a short time, start to fill some of the other specialty assignments, fill the detective division, which are investigating these crimes, fill the traffic division, which is one of our number one complaints. We have these vacancies and some extended leave. We're considering, we're gonna have to move these people back out onto the patrol division, out onto the street. And so as far as if we have to do that, these cameras will help with what you're calling a cost savings. They will help with getting the investigations done quicker with less people.
Let me add one point of clarification. This would be a 2-year commitment, 2 years of money. So we'll get half of the current fiscal year, all of next fiscal year, and then half of 25-26. So you won't see another request for this unless the chief wants to expand the system, right? Until the 25-26 budget. You will not see a request for 24-25, correct?
And, you know, not to dig at my own hole, but unless we see how successful it is and we find there were other locations.
Lee, this department,
just in
this planning
case-
department is always giving us things back. They're always cutting the budget. They always say, we didn't need the things I needed to. Well, I do appreciate that because Jenna's gonna come, and she's gonna say, with the increased number of thefts last year, we've taken one full body offline who's not patrolling to do the follow-up. This is a savings.
And it isn't the first time that we've asked for it. I think the chief mentioned that this has been a recurrent request.
And is this
First
in
time
your,
it's
is
made
this
it
in
this
your,
far,
top
though.
of your list for your CNR?
Well, we have
Oh, they got a whole
mandated
list
things.
for that.
So I'm just saying, is this would be your biggest priority in your CNR right now?
No.
Okay. But it's in your CNR?
It is.
So so that will be an empty spot in your CNR, so we won't
That's correct.
get an extra ask at the budget. Is that a promise?
That's a promise.
Okay.
It's a long time between now and the budget.
Not that long. So are people in favor of including this?
I am.
I'm in favor of it. I don't know.
What would we have to lose?
I don't think anything right now because we're still not so we don't know yet about the Pack Life study because we haven't agreed on that, correct? We're pushing that forward, but we're waiting to see what the Board of Finance says.
I mean, it's a critical public safety issue, and as much as I make fun of folks for leaving their keys in, this is a constant frustration. And again, I wish people would stop leaving their damn keys in their car, cause we wouldn't have stolen cars, but we do. And you have an obligation to investigate those and try to get their property back, right? And if you could cut down and have a better success, and this could stop folks from coming into town, that would be an improvement in the quality of life for residents. So this is not a nice to have, this is something that folks are really frustrated by.
Yeah, so it's become a greater and greater challenge every year with, we don't pursue vehicles.
Right.
For stolen vehicles, they take off on us, we don't pursue them. So this is another tool sort of in response to that we know they're coming in town.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the stolen car is coming into town, so we're going to flood that area in hopes that they are either apprehended or they leave.
And again, if this would change the outcomes, perhaps they would stop coming into town. Okay.
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
Is there any maintenance on the middle, like
Nothing for
repairs,
us.
that sort of thing?
So nothing for us, and there's 2 options that they offer, both solar and direct power. Solar seems to be the best option for us.
Great, you just made it happy.
Chief, maybe you could, before you go, you just asked with anything else. The cameras at the cameras at the PAC, that are on here, the fiber, maybe I know it's Tom Tyberski, we have new cameras there. We spent money this year to put cameras there, correct? Sean, didn't we do that?
Yeah, we did. Why is there
Okay,
more cameras on here?
So this is,
Fiber optic.
so this is, so are we not actually, are they just installed and not on, so we're not getting a feed, or what's happening?
Chris, what's the line item, how's it
It's
described?
called fiber build out, fiber build out PAC. This is part of the initial phase of security surveillance upgrades within the town.
So what the chief's talking about is pretty much an eye in the sky
I
type
get
of
that,
technology.
I'm
So everything else is pretty much hardwired in to DVRs.
Yep.
So the PAC center, what that is specifically is to run fiber to there, bring all those cameras into one central location. So they could monitor it, they could, if there's a crime, they could extract the information, video, whatever. And that's to bring it all back in. So the long range plan is everything that's hardwired has to come back, right? And we have our fiber build out that, over the years, we've built very well. So all that video comes back here. It's not being in a static location like the PAC that could be susceptible to the environment or theft.
So that's the question. So currently the PAC, which has replaced or upgraded cameras, which we did this year, is just on a stationary record DVR there. It's not a live feedback to you folks. You're going there reactively looking at an event and then.
So what they do live wise is that they use and they have it, is they bring up a little piece of software that connects to those cameras live.
Okay.
And also records. So that appropriation that was made was really for DVR, cause now when those cameras are recording, it's also, when it's recording something live, it's putting into storage. So now you get into a period of retention of that video, when it gets called in, so on and so forth. So the longer that period for storage, the better it is, right? The smaller it is, and we've been involved, the IT department's been involved with several events, working with law enforcement over the last 3 months alone, that we have to go through all this video to bring up the event and then provide it to law enforcement.
Okay,
So it's that fiber, Chris, is just really to bring it back into town hall, into the PD.
So safe to say this will be in Tom's budget request. This is called CPR request, right?
Yeah, it'll probably be a CNR coming up in the budget.
Okay, so let's recap here. This isn't gonna be what are you pointing to?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've all agreed on the managed network detection response item, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And we've all agreed on the network switches item, correct?
Mm-hmm.
The PAC Life study, we kind of agreed, but
To
we're
be determined.
TBD, so we're not approving that tonight, right? So this will not be included tonight. We've agreed upon the compensation and classification study. And I guess we should take a vote on the police item if we aren't, I know that I'm in favor of it, I think, Sean, what did you say?
I am, yeah.
In favor, Heather, do you?
I'm in support, yes.
Others in support, so
We need to vote on all of these?
I was gonna vote on the packet because we've already agreed on the four. I was just gonna ask about this last one that we discussed, so what do you guys think, in favor of moving it forward, Chris?
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna add that to move forward. I'll give up the crossing guard stuff and not bring that up. So,
You may do the motion.
yeah, do you wanna do it?
Alright, so I move effective October 23rd, 2023 to transfer 3.4 million 3.4,065,000 from general fund to the capital reserve in the amount of 3.3 million and CNR fund in the 165. We need to change that 165, right, Amy? Cause it's gonna be, we're gonna drop the 35 and it becomes 39. Right, so it's gonna be 168 and change, is that right?
Yeah, you're adding 4,900.
4,900? So I'm amending it, so move effective October 23rd, 2023 to transfer 3,400,000 69 and 69,000? $469,000? Cause that includes the cameras, but drops to life safety.
Yep.
From the general fund to the capital reserve fund in the amount of 3.3 million and the CNR fund in the amount of 169,000 and further 169.9 and further move to appropriate the CNR funds for the following projects: 1, managed network detection and response, 18,000, 2, network switches, 37,000, 3 we'll call them police roadside cameras, 39,900.
Yep.
And classification and, or excuse me, compensation and classification study, 75,000, and recommend to the Board of Finance.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank
Further
you for
move-
your calculator mind there. That was very
Amy will tell
helpful
me whether-
tonight at 9.
If we have to fix it at the next meeting.
I'll let you know.
I further move to effective October 23rd, 2023, to roll over the open encumbrances total 68,319 and appropriate the funds in the fiscal year 24 budget in accordance with the open purchase order detail report and recommend to the Board of Finance.
I'll second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Further move that we, effective October 23rd, 2023, to approve the budget year-end transfers in accordance with the general fund budget transfers, budgetary basis document, and recommend to the Board of Finance.
I'll second that also. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. And I'll finally move effective October 23rd, 2023, to approve the capital transfers in accordance with the capital transfer request document and recommend to the Board of Finance.
Second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Nice job.
Is that all the
Nice.
motions you need?
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging there with us.
Yeah, now we can move on to the tax refunds. Anybody wants to discuss them?
That's all we made it to, was tax refund?
I know. We're gonna
We
move,
got like 2 hours left.
we're gonna move quickly. I know. So the tax refunds, asking for a motion effective October 23rd, 2023, to approve the presented tax refunds in the amount of $11,159.91 and to authorize interim town manager Lee Erdman to execute the tax refunds.
Move that.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Can we just ask who this camera is and why they're here?
Nope.
No? Okay. I'm just curious.
I don't
Okay.
think we can.
Okay, just the next item is an appropriation of funds for the Connecticut Department of Agricultural Farm Viability Grant. Lee, do you wanna give a rundown on this without Tom here? Really the grants right from the Department of Agriculture and that's all right.
For town farm.
Anybody have, I won't pull you. You wanna weigh in on this, Tom?
You authorized the
Yeah.
town to apply for the grant.
Right.
And then Tom came back and
Got
said,
the
oh, the state
money.
really liked us, so they want us to apply for more, so we did. We never actually authorized us to like spend the money.
Okay, so we're gonna authorize to spend the money and ask for a motion effective October 23rd, 2023 to appropriate the grant funds if awarded and recommend the appropriation to the Board of Finance.
Move that.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is the Simsbury Public Library grant application for the Connecticut Humanities Implementation Grant, the culinary storytelling. I guess this is a grant for the library. Do you wanna give the information on this, Tom?
Sure.
If anybody wants to, cause I don't see Lisa.
There was a similar grant a couple months ago for kind of a trial. If you'll remember, it was basically the same thing. This is that trial went well, so this is a larger grant for it. So it's a total of 20,000 with 10,000 coming from the grant, 7,500 from the library board discretionary fund, and the angel investors of the Friends of the Simsbury Public Library have committed the other 2,500 to make the 10,000 matching that the town has to for the grant.
I did have one question on that, so we are taking money from the library discretionary fund. I'm assuming that the library board of trustees and the Friends of the Simsbury Library have agreed that this is where the money wants to be spent?
I would guess, so this came from Lisa, so I would
Yes.
guess yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, asking for a motion effective October 23rd, 2023 to authorize the library to submit a grant application to CTH for $20,000 to authorize interim town manager Lee Erdman to execute the grant application, and if it's awarded, move to accept the grant and authorize interim town manager Lee Erdman to execute all documents related to the grant award. Further move to appropriate the grant funds if awarded and recommend said appropriation to the Board of Finance.
Move that. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next item is rescheduling the public hearing on the tobacco, vaping and cannabis products. This was originally scheduled for October 11th and we did not have a quorum in the meeting, so we're really just rescheduling the ordinance and a public hearing. There was one addition, we did include a list of smoking bans and some articles from across the state where there are multiple cities that either have a cannabis ban, have a smoking, tobacco and cannabis ban, and those are there just to show that this is not something that hasn't been done in other areas in the state. So I'm looking for a motion effective October 23rd, 2023 to set a public hearing to receive public comment on the proposed ordinance prohibiting the use of tobacco, vaping and cannabis products on public property for 6 p.m. on Monday, November 13th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, so come on November 13th, something to say. And the next item is to schedule the public hearing
Sorry, guys.
that we've already, I told them that. To schedule the public hearing for the Fair Rent Commission. I'm looking for a motion effective October 23rd, 2023 to set a public hearing to receive public comments on the proposed amendment to the Fair Rent Commission ordinance for 6 p.m. on Monday, November 13th, 2023.
With that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so these are both at the same time?
You got the second.
Okay.
Heather got the second. And then this last item, right, is the Greater Hartford Transit District Dial-A-Ride, which I haven't read yet, so this is just an annual grant that we get?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm asked for a motion effective October 23rd, 2023 to accept the fiscal year 23-24 grant funds from the Greater Hartford Transit District to support our Dial-A-Ride program and to authorize interim town manager Lee Erdman to execute all documents related to the grant award. Further move to appropriate the grant funds if awarded and recommend said appropriation to the Board of Finance.
With that.
Second?
Oh, good, got me a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, what's next here? Any comments on the minutes from September 27th? And then I'm gonna ask for a motion to move into executive session with Attorney DeCrescenzo and the town manager Lee Erdman and
Yep.
Deputy
Tom
Town Manager
James, yep.
Tom Fitzgerald.
With that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.